The Butt Kicker Gamer 2. What you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
And welcome back to the Precision Racing League's Fixed and Sprint Series GT3 racing on a Tuesday night. I hope you're not tired of the high banks just yet, because we're back in Florida for round 6, being held at the World Centre of Racing, the Daytona International Speedway. After a highly participated event at the weekend, these drivers should be up to speed in a way that is not likely to be replicated all season, so the standards should be very high. Hope you enjoy the show tonight. Should be a good one. My name is Ian O'Leary. I'm alongside Andy McEwen. Get your head around that. And it's two British people commentating on a race that's happening at 1:30 in the morning for both of us. So get your head around that as well. But we're very much looking forward to it, Andy. Great to be here. Daytona, a great circuit. It's been well used after last weekend, I think it's fair to say, but it's fresh in the minds for these drivers, and hopefully that increases the standard even further.
Yeah, I think it probably will. There aren't many things that keep me out of bed at 1:30 in the morning, but GT3 racing around the high banks of Daytona is certainly one of them. There's no way that I'm fed up of the sight of the high banks just yet. It is a track that always produces fantastic racing. The slipstream, the draft is so powerful around here. Both of our races tonight are likely to be decided in the final few hundred feet, and it really doesn't get much better than that.
Certainly doesn't, yeah, I'm very much looking forward to seeing Daytona again. Not tired of it just yet either. Not tired of some of these circuits we've got to come as well. Daytona tonight, of course, but we're staying over in the USA next week as well. Long Beach is going to be a very different challenge, but a very exciting one in the same way. Into Lagos for the third last round, then Road America and Okayama to end out the season. We've seen some crackers earlier on in the season as well. Some real big Grand Prix circuits there, and it's created these championship standings. Michael Terrafino is leading right now, ahead of Michael Pebellano, then Uri Rexoy. Those three sort of stepping away from the rest right now. 16 points separate those three, a little bit of a gap to the rest. Angelo Veloz is in 4th ahead of Matchrev. And then you've got all the way down to Rodrigo Morales, 80 points in 10th position right now, just over 50 points back as of right now. Because we're in the second half of the season as well, drop weeks are being applied to these standings, as they are to the teams' championships as well, where Vulture Motorsport, are having a fantastic time of things. 1 and 2 with Team Beef in that third place. We Race Esports and Lunatic Moonlight Speed Racing rounding out your top 5 there. But very much Vulture Motorsports having things all their own way in the team standings here. So lots still to play for, but as I mentioned, now that we're in the second half of the season, we are applying those drop weeks to the championship standings that we have here before these races, and we'll continue to show you before every race here this season. Before we go any further though, let's just tell you about the sponsors that make this broadcast possible, starting of course with VCO, helping us to broadcast every Precision Racing League event in the first season of 2023. Very glad to have them on board once again for these races. This broadcast also brought to you by Advanced Sim Racing, owned and operated by passionate sim racers. Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision5 coupon code. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racer. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, our button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setups. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and get a 5% discount using the Precision5 coupon code. RaceLab helps you to improve your driving skills. With modern overlays, race statistics and native VR integration, you can get the best out of iRacing. Start using it now for free at racelab.app. Bookkicker products provide an incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Mecha Sim Hardware is a small company from the Czech Republic, and their goal is to produce high-quality sim racing hardware. If you are looking for a high-end pedal set, handbrake or sequential shifter, visit Mecha Sim Hardware's eShop right now to get you up to speed. And finally, NinjaTrader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting and trade simulation. Visit ninjatrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance. There we are. Big thanks to all of those sponsors who make this broadcast possible and continue to do so throughout the Precision Racing League's events in the early part of 2023, which we are very much still within. Round 6, just into the second half of the season then, and still in the first half of this qualifying session right now. Going to be fairly important, I would imagine. I always hear this argument, Andy, with the Daytona circuit. It's a circuit you can overtake on, there's no doubt about that, but it's a circuit that I wouldn't want to start very far down heading in towards turn number 1, because it's a turn that can see trouble on occasion, particularly on the first lap.
Yeah, for sure. It's a real pinch point there through those first couple of corners. Indeed, that whole infield section, really, very difficult to run around 2x2, especially on cold tyres, which they'll all be fighting in the early stages of the races tonight. That being said, I think if you can start anywhere inside those first 2 or 3 rows, you feel pretty confident that you'll be able to compete for the race win. It's all about staying in that lead pack. You will inevitably see a little bit of separation throughout the field. A group of cars might make a breakaway towards the front, and you need to make sure that you are in that group of cars in order to have half a chance at fighting for the victory in the podium places. We've got pit stops to think about as well. That can separate the pack too. So there is a lot more to this than just qualifying at the front and buying yourself that trap position, and that's one of the reasons why Daytona is always such a hit.
Yeah, we're unlikely to see a lights to flag victory from a pole sitter. I mean, I guess you never know, but it's very unlikely, and it would be a remarkable performance as well from whoever could pull that off. So far, Michael Terrafino is on the provisional pole position. He hasn't got much of a margin, only 1/10 of a second to Eric Kulaga, who's second place in a Ford GT. Can I just add? Big fan of the Ford, even though it's not used very more, often for good reason. Because it's not that quick, but clearly Kulaga has found a way to make it pretty quick here today. Also, alongside Jay Steffi, his Vulture Motorsports North teammate, is also using a Ford for this championship. Great to see the two of them out there using that bit of a relic of a car, really, at this stage, but still apparently can be competitive on occasion. It does seem though that the top two have got a bit of a margin. Terrafino and Kulaga have got 3/10 to Dale Pedersen, who's in third place, but third on backwards. It is very, very close, as you'd expect to see from Daytona, really. It's not the most overly complicated circuit, I would say, especially when you lay it down as a track map. It looks pretty simple. It is maybe a bit more difficult than you would see on paper, but it is one of those circuits where you see very close qualifying times, as we are right now.
Yeah, it's really all about the racing here at Daytona, isn't it? It is a track that most drivers at this level will be able to figure out pretty quickly, but the nuances of the racecraft required to do well here, that takes a lot more time to learn, and it's all about experience, really. Change there on the front row, by the way, as the number 6 car jumps into second place. That's Dale Pedersen, so Michael Terrafino, who has been 3 times on pole position so far this season, having some very close competition at the front, and he might need to get used to that, I think, as the night goes on. And as you said, very, very tight in the times. Less than half a tenth between those top 2. Then a bit of a gap back to Kalaga in 3rd. And then the next whole group of 5 or 6 cars really covered by just a couple of tenths of a second. And I'm sure we could see those times tighten up even further before the end of the qualifying session.
See Angelo Veloz over the line, up to second as well, back onto the front row. So everybody's starting to catch up a little bit with Terrafino and Kulaga, who got out of the gate very quickly. But now we do have a few drivers really contesting. There's Dale Pedersen, who's currently quite far down in the championship, 17th for him at the moment, after a couple of non-starters and a DNF in there as well. But when he has been here, he has been on song, with some good performances and a podium at the first round, the opener of the season. So you never know, we could see that again from Pedersen into the Le Mans chicane, the bus stop chicane. Take your pick. Pedersen will fly through here and try and get the best exit possible. That's where the action is really going to be, I feel, towards the end of these races. We speak a lot, of course, about that run to the line, the final few metres, and it might well come down to that, but you run out of the bus stop chicane on the final lap is where it's really going to be important, and the race could be decided in those very few corners.
I think it likely will be. If you've got a group of cars fighting at the front, then you don't really want to be at the front of that group going into the second half of the final lap. So that's a real tactical head scratcher for the drivers. Dale Pedersen there jumping onto the front row now. Also some changes further back. Colin McKenzie jumping into 5th position. One driver who has yet to really show us his very best, I suspect, in this qualifying session, though, is Matt Scherf. Matt Scherf was a winner back at Monza, and I sort of had him tipped to run well here tonight. Daytona is not that dissimilar in nature to the high-speed slipstreaming track at Monza, and Matt Scherf all the way down in 25th at the moment, as Michael Kalaga comes through and goes 13th.
Yeah, I've seen a number of improvements. It has got a bit closer. Well, it did briefly get closer at the top. Dale Pedersen was briefly 6 thousandths away from Terrafino. He's now more than half a tenth away. Terrafino does seem to have that little bit of pace back in the locker to use when he needs it, and he just has done, to maybe just consolidate that first position and that pole position for the race coming up very soon. We'll wait and see whether he has, but that is a big gap. Colin McKenzie currently running in the top 5, one of the Lunatic Motorsports, Lunatic Moonlight Speed Racing drivers, to give them their full name. McKenzie down in 14th in the standings right now, with a couple of highlights in there, but is returning from a week's absence. Wasn't present at the Manicours race that we saw this time last week. A relatively new circuit on the iRacing service, and one that I'm personally very glad that it is on. Daytona here been on the iRacing service for much longer than that. McKenzie makes his way through NASCAR 3 and 4, but unfortunately will make his way down in towards the pit lane. No, he's going to make his way into the apron, to try and shave off those final few thousandths of a second, and he has done, and it's earned him another position for up to 4th place. Zoe Rexoy, 3rd in the standings, needs to stay with Terrafino if possible, and it's a good improvement up to the front row. Will it be? No, it doesn't look like it. He may have gotten off track somewhere along the line because his time was good. Urexoy stays 7th. Lots of drivers coming over the line, but nobody really jumping up other than Michael Kulaga, who gets up to 6th. It just shows you a small improvement can get you a long way in this session.
Yeah, Kulaga, both of the Kulagas, in fact, sharing the 3rd row at the moment. Chris Yatito there running a little bit too wide out of the Western Horseshoe, dipping a wheel onto the grass, and I think he realised that had spoiled his lap rather. So a very entertaining qualifying session. Dominance, though, for Michael Terrafino, his 4th pole position of the season, but this one by half a second, Ewan. That is impressive.
Certainly is, and we'll see if he can convert it into his 4th win of the season. He'll be on the inside with Dale Pedersen alongside him. Angelo Veloz will be sharing row 2 with Colin McKenzie, and the Calagers will be sharing row 3. Eric ahead of Michael. 7th place will be Robert Deloche. They're in just ahead of Sully Sad and Michael Papelano, will round out the top 10. Then it'll be Rob Campbell and Dino Vella in 11th and 12th. Rodrigo Morales will be 13th ahead of Stephen Martinez. Then it's Maurice Gomillion, top 10 in the championship, 15th off of the start of this race. Sheldon Hamilton will be 16th ahead of Regan Chandler. Then it'll be Aidan Irvin rounding out 18th position. Chris Yatito will be in 19th with Drew DeWase rounding out the top 20. Jay Steffi outside of the top 20. Will be disappointed with that in the Ford. 21st for him ahead of the Apollo Racing Club Mercedes of Jeff Fleischmann in 22nd. Greg Doucette will be in 23rd ahead of Felix Feliz in the 24th place. Alex Wright and Baron Glover will share the 13th row with Nicholas Karanjes will in 27th. Ryan Luna will be in 28th ahead of Matt Sharef in 29th. Rounding up the top 30, it is Matt Dinsmore, then Mark File in 31st, Jack Khalifa 32nd. Andrew Venero and Barry Cochrane will round out the 17th row. Ryan Chandler, 35th, with Frank Johnson alongside him. We're still going here, by the way. Federico Carli will be 37th ahead of Phil Amaro. Jason Lottridge and Greg McEnemy will be in the top 40. Greg Hoskins just making out with Glenn Vanko, 42nd. Waldo Walden, Mikael Plord, Jordan Walker, Lucio Vargas and Jonathan Diggs will round out an absolutely whopping 47 car grid with some difficult names on, I've got to be honest, so I apologise if I got any of them wrong, but it's an absolutely huge grid. It's 78 Fahrenheit ambient and on the track here tonight, just ticking into the evening here at Daytona. Very, very large grid, as we've just seen, and hopefully a very interesting race, but I think the story is going to be who can stop Michael Terrafino.
It certainly is. His qualifying pace is ominous, isn't it? There are a couple of drivers, though, who really need to dig themselves out of a hole. Michael Pabayano, second in the points arriving here at Daytona, only managed 10th in qualifying, and I touched upon Matt Scherf. He's inside the top 5 in the points, 29th on the grid for him, and that's right in the danger zone heading into that first corner.
Certainly is. Just getting through turn 1, lap 1. The International Horseshoe as well will be half of the story. Getting towards the end of this race in the front group, a whole different kettle of fish. The BMW of Michael Terrafino in control of the field for the 4th time out of 6. He gets us underway. Green flag racing at Daytona, and it's going to be single file for the first 3 or 4. But what's going to happen behind? Pedersen dives deep on the brakes in the Ferrari. He'll consolidate second with Veloz in 3rd. McKenzie battling for 4th at the moment with Eric Kulaga, who's going to just barge him out for that one, and they barge again inside for Veloz in the Audi. He'll take 4th. And then there will be Kulaga in the 5th position. There's single file at the front. Finally, there is a bit of contact, and one of the Audis goes around. It's the 63 by the looks of things of Uri Rextoy, 3rd place in the standings and dropping all the way down.
Oh, and I think I saw Pabayano getting a bit sideways as well, although he saved it. A couple of slightly dodgy rejoins in the back of the pack, but this was always the danger. We mentioned it a couple of times already in the broadcast. Starting in the middle or the back of the pack is where you get involved in these incidents. Another one now coming out of the Western Horseshoe. That is Rodrigo Morales, I think, going around in the 23, and more joining him. It's absolute carnage on the infield here at Daytona on the opening lap.
Yeah, Rodrigo Morales was spun and then hit and hit and hit again. I'm afraid a lot of damage you would imagine has been done to that Mercedes as a result of that. We've already got some pretty big gaps at the front as well. You can see at the moment we're watching Regan Chandler just inside the top 15 right now, but the gaps are pretty large for Daytona. Carlin starting to open up, and now we're starting to see whether there's going to be battling or bump drafting here on the opening lap. Do you keep the field together by bumping the car in front, or do you decide to go side by side and battle in towards turn 1. Well, I know the decision that these guys have made for 7th position. This is a big battle right now. Rob Campbell pushing Sully Sand to the front right now as Michael Kulaga is just getting overtaken by everybody. He goes down the inside. There's contact with Sully Sand and the Lamborghini as well getting involved of Rob Campbell. That was messy. You could maybe see that coming from quite a few seconds earlier. They were very up for that battle into turn 1.
Yeah, lots of squeezing going on into the braking zone, all a bit unnecessary really at the start of the second lap of a 35-minute race if you ask me, but there you go. And unfortunately 2 or 3 drivers from towards the front of the pack already falling by the wayside. For Terrafino, Pedersen and Veloso and indeed Mackenzie, they are starting to pull away, and well, Ewan, there just wasn't the space really. Quite an aggressive move. The unluckiest of the drivers there for sure was the Lamborghini on the outside line, which really had no involvement in the initial contact, but was then just in the wrong place at the wrong time. That was Rob Campbell going around, and he will rejoin outside of the top 10.
Yeah, certainly will, and possibly with damage as well. There was definitely a salvageable contact there. And we'll see how they get on. Damage, of course, really want to avoid it around here with straight line speed. So crucial to how you'll get on with this race. Top 4 seem to be getting away though right now. Michael Terrafino has converted pole position to an early lead. Dale Pedersen is second ahead of Angelo Veloz, and then we have Colin McKenzie. Eric Kulaga has just let that go a little bit now, and there's gaps starting to open up there. This is Rodrigo Morales and what happened earlier on at the West Horseshoe. This is lap 1, of course. He's hit, well, multiple times by that Lamborghini, rolls into the road. Another Lamborghini hits him a little bit later. It could have all been avoided, really. You get the feeling a lot of that could have been avoided. Bit clumsy on the opening lap, and I have a feeling there's going to be more clumsy replays to watch as well. Another one of, I believe, one of the Lunatic Moonlight cars to see go around at the bus stop chicane, although I could be wrong, as we've got side by side for the lead. The first challenge to Michael Terrafino posed, the first question being posed by Dale Pedersen. And now Veloz is going to try and get on this as well. But the top 4 staying very much together at the end of lap 2.
Yeah, plenty of drivers unfortunately finding drama on that opening lap. Alex Wrights was the Lamborghini we saw going off at the chicane, and it was Matt Dinsmore who ploughed into Rodrigo Morales at this part of the track on the opening lap, and so many drivers getting caught up in other people's incidents really, which, as we said, there's always the danger of starting further back in the pack. These guys though, they've been able to escape that so far. Another replay, and that is the 93 Lamborghini, I think that was, which had already been around at turn 2, then finding itself parked in the middle of the road, and again drivers coming through that sequence of corners blinded by other cars around them and just not having the space ultimately to avoid the roadblock ahead. The leaders make their way down towards the Le Mans chicane though, and you're right, Michael Terrafino not escaping. That's not a huge surprise given where we're racing, but Pedersen, Veloz and McKenzie so far staying right in his wheel tracks.
They are for now, but the pit stops and the pit stop phase could very well see those gaps open up for good. If somebody gets a gap out the other end of the pit stop phase, then you never know. We could see the winner come from that. But Dale Pedersen does not want to give Michael Terrafino any room to breathe right now. Outside line as they go over the line. Pedersen would have been in front there, will be scored as the leader, but Terrafino should hold on in the BMW. Inside line is going to be key, and Pedersen just has to slot into line and hope that Veloz doesn't challenge too much here into the International Horseshoe. He does a little bit. The two Ferraris very nearly fighting on that occasion, but not this time around. They'll wait a little bit further into this race, and with nearly half an hour to go, you can understand why. Remains to be seen now whether Terrafino is going to have one of those races where he just protects the inside line at turn 1 and leads the field around pretty much all day long. I'm not entirely sure, because fuel saving may well come into it a little bit as well, with that pit stop looming for everybody.
Yeah, he had probably his toughest race so far, actually, a week ago at Magny-Cours in Terrafino, where Michael Pabiano challenged him the whole way. They did trade the lead a couple of times during that race as well, and we've already seen a couple of lead changes in this one too. And Dale Pedersen there perhaps planning for where he wants to be on that final lap of the race. On board meanwhile with Regan Chandler, 13th place for him, and the red BMW in this long queue of cars. It is the number 85 of Drew Dweezy who he is chasing after the the Audi just in the distance, and that draft should start to close them all together. All looks nice and calm and orderly at this part of the track and at this point in the race, but you can bet that if we jump on board with Regan in, I don't know, 25 minutes time, he might look a little bit more stressed as we move into the dogfight at the end of the race.
Yeah, it doesn't often get too stressed, has to be said. We often get a look into the view of Regan Chandler, see, well, in real life anyway, to see quite how relaxed he is. I do get the feeling from this BMW as well. I know it's been out for a very long time now in iRacing, over a year, but I do get the feeling that this car just relaxes you it somewhat, even in a frantic sprint race like this. Seems very planted, seems very low stress, low maintenance, if you like, and clearly Chandler making it work at the moment. Side by side in towards turn 1. That's very late on the brakes from the Ferrari on the outside line, but making it work there. I think that's a recovering Michael Kulaga. It is indeed, and you just get past the 311 Lamborghini. There he is, Vulture Motorsports South, making sure that Vulture Motorsports' monopoly over the front of the Teams Championship is restored, and gaining a couple of points in that way. We move back outside the top 30, where there's even a McLaren involved back here, which is good to see. Another one of the older cars being used right now. Jonathan Diggs at the wheel of that one in 31st position. There's battles to be had absolutely everywhere here in the Precision Racing League. There's one for the actual lead and one right the way down to the last running positions.
Yeah, and that is exactly what we love to see and what we come to expect from a track such as Daytona. Wherever you are up and down the field, you've got somebody to have a race with. And actually, that's what I'm learning very quickly about the Precision Racing League championships, all of them really, because they're very big grids. It means there are naturally lots of drivers capable of running at a similar pace to each other, and that will always produce this really close side-by-side racing. Matt Dinsmore here we're seeing running a little bit further back than he might like. He's on the tail of the Porsche of Glenn Vanco, the Team Beef car, with one of the brighter liveries on the grid actually, but it is about to be overtaken by the Lamborghini Huracan as they come off NASCAR Turn 2 and make their way down towards the Le Mans chicane. This is a battle happening just outside of the top 30, so no doubt drivers who were held up in a few incidents early on, but now trying to recover their way up the order as they come now towards the end of the opening 10 minutes.
Yeah, no complaints from me, by the way, about bright livery. That's top marks from me, actually. And the RaceSpot stickers as well, to make you go even faster. It's scientifically proven, in fact, actually. But anyway, battle outside the top 5 or so for 8th place, and it involves one of our championship protagonists, Michael Pepolano, at the moment involved in this one. 8th place right now, looking to get through and battle for 7th with Dino Vella in the 36 Audi. This is going all the way down to about 14th place and Stephen Martinez right now. These kind of trains do tend to form at Daytona. These two trying to get themselves away from it, actually, Vella and Pepolano. We'll see if they can. They've got the, maybe they do have the means to do so. And we'll see whether they decide to fight or draft with each other at this stage. I find it interesting to see that even in the real, long races like the Daytona 24 Hours, we saw last weekend a lot of bump drafting going on. But sometimes in these sprint races, people are more willing to battle despite the shorter distance, as we're seeing here, even into the bus stop chicane, side by side. And on that occasion, it was Buck Hamilton who managed to come out on top in the Mercedes. But you can imagine that Gormillion in the Ferrari and yes, Tito as well in the Ferrari as well, will both be able to come back in this down the next straight. So it does find it slightly bizarre that they battle more in sprint races when there's less time to go, and they do less so in the endurance races, but I guess it makes a little bit of sense given the shorter distance. But even so, I can't help but feel that these guys working together will be a bit more useful right now.
Certainly those who are trying to come from deeper in the pack, there is that incentive to work with each other, but also, as you say, they've only got 35 minutes in total to get to the front, and so you do sort of have to just sort of pick them up and put them down as soon as you can. We've had a lead change, by the way, with Dale Pedersen now ahead of Michael Terrafino, so he did manage to get the draft timed correctly that time into turn number 1, and so for the first time on the infield section at least, it is the Ferrari 488 that leads the BMW M4, and it'll be interesting to compare the straight line speed between these two cars. The Ferrari always has been pretty handy in a straight line, so not a huge surprise to me to see two of the top 3 cars being the prancing horses, but the BMW has the aerodynamic benefit of the slipstream, and Michael Terrafino will close in on the back of the Ferrari off NASCAR turn 2. Does he pull alongside down the straight? No, seems content for now to ride along behind the Ferrari, so some of them are listening to you, Ewan. At least at the front of the field there is a little bit of temporary working together.
Yeah, I do get the feeling, though, that was just because Terrafino didn't want to pass at the chicane, where it's a little bit more dangerous than it is at turn 1. Not that it's easy at turn 1 either, but significantly less dangerous, I would argue, than the bus stop, as maybe yes, Tito might have just found out there for Ford Racing. In the Ferrari, in the wall, there are the two leaders, by the way. Are they working together or are they battling? It looks like we've got our first signs of working together. There's the slide. Oh, dear me. There's the contact as well for the Ferrari. That is what we call race-ending damage, I would imagine, at the bus stop chicane. Not the last time we will see that today, I would imagine. It's very, very tricky indeed.
Yeah, he was going around the outside there, Tito, and I think he just braked a little bit too late, asked a bit too much of the tyres, and just broke traction going through the left-hander at the chicane, and from there there's only one destination, I'm afraid, and that is the tyre barrier, a very popular place to have an accident on the Daytona road course. Front of the field, though, Pedersen staying in front, so Terrafino for now is happy just to stay behind. As you said, he didn't make any attempt to pull out of the slipstream through the front stretch, and you can see why, because by running nose to tail like this, they're starting to gap Angelo Veloz and Colin McKenzie behind. A 1.6 second gap, Ewan, is almost enough for these two to have broken the toe against 3rd and 4th place, so another lap or 2 of working together and they might have themselves a handy cushion.
Looks like that's what Terrafino's thinking right now, just try and reduce this front group as much as possible, and with that little bit of cooperation he has half the front group, and now that he's got Pedersen in front of him as well, he might be able to save a bit of fuel and jump him in the pit stops as well. Of course, this is all in an ideal world for Terrafino. It doesn't often work out like that, but that might well be the plan. Let's see what the decision is this time down towards turn 1. Is there going to be sustained cooperation now, or is there going to be a breaking of that bond almost immediately? Let's see. Terrafino closes up to the back of the Ferrari, and he sort of half pulls out there, but then pushes the Ferrari as well, so I don't quite know whether he's just trying to get a look in front as well, or what's going on there, but Terrafino doesn't get square on with the Ferrari, likes to just do a bit of a half and half and then push Pedersen further in front. So just over 20 minutes to go, plenty of time until the pit stops as well, but we definitely have two leaders. I don't think Pedersen entirely trusts it though, a little bit of defence in towards the International Horseshoe, as that was Pepiana going very wide through turn number 1. Down to 8th place he goes, as it looks like Vela has got that position, 7th place pretty much locked down, although the Lamborghini very much still there. Peppolano, I think, is going to be pretty worried about this race, really, because whether Terrafino wins it or not doesn't really matter. He's going to be gaining significant points on the 101, almost whatever happens by the looks of this race situation right now.
Yeah, and for Pabayano, it gets even worse when you consider the drop score situation, because he's already had a non-start. He did not race with us at Monza for round 2, so he's already had a 0-pointer. That will be his drop score, so another disappointing result here will be all the more disappointing. Speaking of disappointing, cars 12 and 25 coming together there, coming out of the first corner. Michael Plord was the number 12 car there, the Ferrari that rather rudely assaulted the Mercedes-AMG of Jeff Fleischmann, and Fleischmann heading straight to the pit lane. His race appears to be done, so that real fight to try and move forward from the midfield is not ending well for a few drivers, and we're seeing quite a few of them fall by the wayside as they're about to go 3 wide into the Le Mans chicane. That is never going to work. Someone will have to back out, and amazingly they all sort of figured that out just in time, and Michael Kulaga sensibly there, Ewan, hitting the brakes and bailing from what was a bit of a precarious situation.
Well, I was wincing terribly there, bracing for impact, but it never came. Fortunately, the three of them got through there without too many well, any contact at all, which is somewhat remarkable. But let's see down in towards turn number 1 if it will be the same story. Michael Kulaga going to push the Audi to the front now on the outside line. It was him, of course, on the inside at turn 1 that caused an incident a little bit earlier on involving Rob Campbell and others. This time swings a lot wider, trying to stay out of trouble now, I think, at this stage in the race, and achieves that in towards turn number 1. I mean, one of these incidents has got to play on your mind a little bit, and maybe it is, as I'm pretty sure that's Regan Chandler getting tipped around. It was by the 85 of Duese there into turn 1. Got another replay at the bus stop as well. One of the Ferraris going for a shortcut. It's not exactly going to save you any time, though. You're going to get lost in a maze of tyre walls, and you'll be lucky if you get out as well without making any contact with the wall. One of the Ferraris emerging from that, unfortunately. Better to just go around there on the grass as Regan Chandler, I'm pretty sure that is again going sailing off. Oh no! Oh, straight into the pack as well. I thought he was going to stop in time, but Regan Chandler straight into the pack. That was the 32 Lamborghini he clattered into. I'm sure it was Chandler's BMW. Went sailing across the corner, and when you're on the grass like that, you cannot stop, and that's a nasty head-on impact.
Yeah, Greg Doucet, completely innocent. Here we ride on board with Regan Chandler, dips a wheel on the grass coming out of the S's, overcorrects, and from there you're a passenger, and he will know that the impact is probably coming head on into Doucet's Lamborghini, and that was pretty much the nightmare scenario into that corner. If somebody gets it wrong on that short shoot down towards the International Horseshoe and they go right, not left, well, they're heading straight into oncoming traffic. So dramatic few minutes there, and top marks to our producer Hugo Luis for pulling out all of the replays of the many bits of action that we've had in the recent past. You know, not missing anything at the front of the field. Still Dale Pedersen and Michael Terrafino working together. 2.8 seconds clear now of Mackenzie, who moved ahead of Veloce into 3rd position, and then the fight for 5th with the 235 car of Robert Deloach in 5th. Eric Gulaga in the Ford GT running right behind him and continuing to look competitive.
Oh, that's not a nice view there for one of the Fords. I think that was Jay Steffi, was it maybe? Well, it's the only one it can be, I suppose. It's not going to be Eric Kulaga. So yeah, that's not a nice view for him. But he did gain 3 places as a result, so he's not going to be losing any sleep over it, I wouldn't imagine. Pretty hefty impact, I'm afraid, and for both of the Chandlers, it's been a disappointing race. Ryan Chandler with nearly 7 minutes down in the box. He's 4 laps down at the moment in 43rd place, looking to go around and try and get some points from this one, but top 30 only get points in these races, so does need to hope that quite a hefty number of other cars and drivers have problems later on in the day. Battle for the lead is about to go down to pit lane as Dale Pedersen is the first of, well, anybody pretty much to take a scheduled pit stop so far today in the race. Still more than 15 minutes to go. He's decided to take the jump as there's more contact further down. That's in towards the West Horseshoe with one of the BMWs. That could have been Phil Amaro maybe in the BMW. That's the 333 Ferrari also going pretty slowly down to the apron. That's Jason Lotterer just trying to stay out of the way of everybody after falling 5 laps down with contact earlier on in the day. Dale Pedersen emerges though, 10.7 seconds is the time. That's worth noting down, and Michael Terrafino will hope to beat that and get out in front of him.
Yeah, I was about to say, I felt it was a strange choice for Dale to pit earlier than everybody else, but as it turns out, this was a very popular lap to pit because most of the top half of the field have opted to pit at the end of that, the 11th lap of the race. So Pedersen comes out in nice clean air, no one to draft with, but he won't be ultra concerned with that, given that Michael Terrafino, who he left out there as the race leader, is in very much the same boat as well. There's the number 22 Porsche in the pit lane too. Before this pit stop cycle began, by the way, I was about to point out that Matt Scherf, who I documented was starting 29th on the grid in this race, he moved well inside the top 15, and he's also chosen to pit at this point as well, so it'll be interesting to see where he shakes out, another one of our championship front runners.
Certainly is, and still nearly quarter of an hour to cycle this one out. Number of drivers still down on pit lane. By the way, 10.7 seconds, quite short in terms of a pit stop time there for Dale Pedersen in relation to Colin McKenzie, Robert Deloach, Eric Kulaga, Angelo Veloz, all 3 or 4 seconds longer than he was. So let's see what Michael Terrafino does. He's down on pit lane now, the championship leader and current race leader, looking to go from pole position to race victory once again, as he has done on the last 2 occasions in this series. Maurice Gormillon is going to also follow him in, as well as Michael Kulaga right now. Terrafino goes well over 10 seconds. This is a long stop for Terrafino. Wow, very long stop. 17.9. That's going to drop him well back. It's nearly 8 seconds longer than Dale Pedersen. 7.2 seconds longer stationary. Colin McKenzie's going to be in and around Terrafino at this rate. Where's the 15 Audi going to come out? You can see him on the left-hand side. There he is, coming through the S's. Terrafino's even going to be under fire from McKenzie into the International Horseshoe. Wow, that's a big gap. 5.5 seconds, seemingly out of nowhere.
Yeah, that is interesting then. So a very short stop for Pedersen and a very long one for Terrafino means that that gap has shot right out. But my first concern when you mention this short stop for Pedersen is fuel. This is a very, very difficult circuit for the fuel because you're on the throttle so much. You use a lot of fuel on each lap, and if you have miscalculated that fuel usage slightly, or the amount of fuel you have to add at the stop, that could prove catastrophic at the end of the race, especially if we find ourselves in a situation where we sneak one more lap out of the race distance than was expected. So we'll wait and see how that plays out over the remaining 12 minutes, but certainly Pedersen for the time being very comfortable out in front, 6 seconds to the good over Terrafino, who is likely now to have to turn his attention to defence as McKenzie comes up behind him. Veloz, the other loser as well, remember he was running 4th before the pit stops and he's dropped all the way down into 6th position, so quite a few moves and shakers there over those couple of laps during the pit window.
It's bizarre. One short pit stop can change so much in a race of this distance. Even at 35 minutes, pit stop strategy and tactical intrigue in that respect very much alive and well. Colin McKenzie on board with him right now, trying to chase down Terrafino, very much in the slipstream. Not going to be able to get to the rear of the BMW here. He could make a ludicrous dive bomb, but I don't think he will. They will decide to stay behind, and these two, you'd imagine, will fight over second place for most of the rest of the race. Angelo Veloz looking to make up for lost time at the moment into the top 5. Eric Kulaga going to fall out of it in the Ford. He's going to pop into shot. There he is. Behind the couple of Ferraris, Robert Deloach with a good job through the pit stops as well to jump up to 4th place, as we previously mentioned. Stephen Martinez as well with a short stop there. He's got in front of Michael Peppiano in terms of a championship battle. That's going to be very, very important. I think Peppiano is going to be one of the most pleased drivers in the field to see Dale Pedersen a few seconds in front of Terrafino. Going to save him a few points there. Although it does still look like Peppiano is going to finish significantly behind his championship rival Terrafino.
Update. I know there are quite a few people watching along supporting that. Well, it's not a good update, I'm afraid. It looks like he's out of the race, so at some point during that pit cycle, Matt Scherf has pulled into the pit lane to retire. That's his 2nd non-finish in a row, so that's the kind of thing that can easily derail your championship campaign. Meanwhile, we've got this entertaining fight going on just outside of the top 10. Gamilian, Steffi, Kulaga, File in the number 77 as well, Karanjas all running together, and this is going to be a battle pack worth keeping our eye on, I think, towards the flag, because they're likely to get closer and closer together in the draft, and it's going to be a battle, I think, that goes right down to the wire. Will we have a similar situation at the front of the field? Well, right now it's looking unlikely. If Pedersen's got his fuel calculations right, it looks like he's got the pace to keep that nearly 6-second lead over Terrafino and McKenzie, as someone else, I'm afraid, has got it wrong at the chicane.
It's inside the top 10. Dino Vella in the Audi. He's going to drop behind this group as well, being led by Jake Steffi. Let's see. It's going to be a solo incident. Oh, in the Audi. Oh, no. Oh, no, no, no. Big incident again. The way that the cars lose themselves on the first left-hander there is resulting in some monumental crashes. A big head-on impact there for Vella, and I'll be impressed if he can continue at any sort of pace with the damage he's got in that Audi right now. We'll wait and see if he has to come down pit lane, and I imagine he will, as this is a big battle, and this is the one that just passed him as he was getting back going again. Jay Steffi was at the head of it. Changes within it as well. Michael Kulaga really getting a move on here and doing a good job of recovering some lost time and some lost positions that he suffered in the last couple of moments. He's now ahead of Mark Fowl into 12th place. It's not been a bad recovery from Michael Kulaga after his incident at turn 1 on, lap 2 or 3, I think it was.
Yeah, not at all. He could certainly get into the top 10 here by the flag, and actually I wouldn't say that Buck Hamilton in 9th is safe either, so more places to be gained. He's on the attack again, look, as they head towards the left-hander at turn number 6, just settles back in temporarily in line, of course trying to chase after Jay Steffi, this group in the second of those 4 GTs, which really do seem to be excelling here on the high-speed, high banks of Daytona, and in fact Steffi now starting to break clear of this group by nearly a second. They're going to go side by side again towards the Le Mans chicane, and this always makes me a little bit nervous. Kulaga on the defence, then on the inside line, that's File to the outside in the number 77 Ferrari, settles back in line behind, and they both continue their battle.
Yeah, going to be difficult to get round the outside of the first part of the Le Mans chicane, bus stop chicane, take your pick. Not going to be able to do it that time. File, and now going to be under pressure himself from the 311 from the 311 Lamborghini. We'll see if there's going to be a push here or whether there's going to be a move. Well, File's going to get pushed here, and at the line he's just about, well, it's going to be very close. Didn't quite take it at the line, but he might into turn 1, outside line. He's brave on the brakes as well, and with the Ford just halting Kulaga's progress a little bit, he nearly got there, but not quite. The inside line still reigning supreme, and Michael Kulaga is going to hold on to 12th place. Once again defends. Dive from the Lamborghini. That was very close. Side by side now with Karanjas coming out the International Horseshoe. Outside line at the kink is surely not going to yield a position, and it doesn't. Fire will once again stay in front, but he'll once again go inside at the West Horseshoe. These battles at Daytona, seemingly they just never end.
Yeah, drivers not content to simply wait for the banked part of the circuit to make their moves, are they? They want to try and overtake at any opportunity, and that was Nicholas Karanjas really showing that, under-braking into both of the horseshoes, being very, very aggressive. Not a great exit onto the banking that time, though, for Kulaga, and so the first of the 2 Ferraris now falling back into the clutches of the other 2 Italian machines behind, and I reckon that we're going to see Mark File once again attack into the Le Mans chicane. This time, though, he's presented with the inside line. He's trying to cover from the Lamborghini as well, and Karanjas just sticks his nose to the inside into the chicane again, more out of hope than anticipation, I think, of making a move, and he does have to settle back in line, but this is really intense fighting. Again, pulls to the outside, almost pulling out a bit too early there, though, and you sort of want to build that momentum a bit more around the banking. Pull out too soon, and you lose all of that benefit of the slipstream, and as we just saw there, it becomes very hard to make the overtake.
Yeah, it certainly did, you just want to get that slingshot really out the bus stop, and then you can make the move, but pull alongside too early, you'll be taking the long way around the banking. Mark File breaks early though, and Karanjas is through into 13th place in the Lamborghini. It's all allowing Jay Steffi actually to get away a little bit in that Ford now with 5 minutes to go. 4 laps to go, including this one. And there was a change of position, or at least a battle going on further up towards the front. I think the battle for 4 starting to hot up really, with Robert Deloach starting to look over his shoulder a little bit really at Veloza and Kulaga. Papagliano not really been able to get any closer to Stephen Martinez, so it looks like 7th and 8th are relatively settled, maybe 9th and 10th as well, just outside the top 10. Where we are here is not changing right now, but very much there will be a chance to before the race is over. It's going to be 3 laps to go at the line. Veloza Deloach once again fighting it out. I think that's into the bus stop. It is. Deloach demoted to 5th position. Veloz up to 4th. And that's not bad news for his championship charge at all. Should be able to at least get near to Urexoy, maybe even overtake him with this performance here. Urexoy out of the race. It's down. Pedersen from the lead is into the pit lane. His short pit stop clearly was a result of underfueling, unfortunately, in this race, and he's handed a gift, a very late Christmas present to Michael Tarantino.
And sideways at the first corner, and that's a half spin for the number 19 Ferrari of Angelo Veloso, another one of our front runners in trouble. But yeah, I was watching that gap. It was starting to come down. Terrafino was taking chunks out of Dale Pedersen, and clearly Dale was doing everything he could to save the fuel, but he's realised that he's really under-fueled because he's a couple of laps from the flag still, and felt the need to come down pit road. So Terrafino takes over the lead, 3 seconds his advantage over Mackenzie, so now things looking a little bit more stable. Pedersen, meanwhile, has rejoined right in this battle that's going on towards the back of the top 10. He's in 8th position with Sean Hamilton, I believe it is, that he is chasing after in 7th position. Car number 57, sorry, Buck Hamilton, excuse me, in 7th place. He might well catch Buck before the flag, but I think that 7th is likely as good as it will get for Pedersen. All the things considered, really, there, Ewan. Not a disaster, given the fact he's had to make a whole extra pit stop, but considering that he had a 6-second lead, he will be immensely disappointed.
Yeah, and given the length of Michael Terrafino's pit stop, you would say that he couldn't have afforded to put those extra couple of laps in of fuel, and he probably still would have been in front as well. What's really puzzling me, though, about that second pit stop is the fact that it was 10 seconds. There's only 3 laps left in the race. Surely it doesn't take that much fuel to get to the end, but maybe he's just being safe to make sure he doesn't have to do that a second time. But either way, 2.5 minutes to go, and Terrafino now surely just has to drive this one home from this point. Let's see. This is now the battle for 3rd place, by the way, as Veloso's completely fallen back after that spin. It's between Deloach and Kulaga. Can we see a Ford on the podium? Quite possibly. It'd be, well, certainly high on my list of things to see at this race, I've got to be honest. Deloach is going to do his best to make sure it doesn't happen, though. Battle for 3rd place is into its penultimate lap with just 2 minutes to go. Terrafino out on his own, Mackenzie unable to keep up. This is the highest placing battle we can really look forward to for the final few moments, but I just wonder, because we haven't really seen it so far, I do wonder whether Kulaga is really going to get near here.
Well, this will be interesting, won't it? Deloach is going to defend this podium as if his life depends on it, because it would be his first of the season. In fact, Deloach's best finish so far, a 12th place, which he's managed on 2 occasions, so hasn't even troubled the top 10 yet in the first half of the season, but looks as though he's going to start off the second half of the season potentially with a top 3 finish, but Eric Kulaga is going to make that as difficult for him as he can. Just dropping back though slightly as they head out onto the banked area of the track, not being helped by the fact that Deloach has got a back marker ahead to get a slipstream from. The back marker then pulling immediately out of the way, and that was pretty much perfect for the 3rd place driver. They come through the Le Mans chicane, then about to start the final lap of the race, and really it is that fight for the final step of the podium that's the most entertaining, looking towards the front, but that midfield pack still as tight as they have been for a while, Ewan, and that I think is where most of the final lap action may be.
Well, this is interesting. Deloach going to the high side. Wondered why. It's because there's another lap car he can grab some slipstream from down off the banking. Kulaga's not really going to get near here. It looks like Deloach has this one under control for now, but there's still a lap to go. Late on the brakes in towards turn number 1. The Ford will close in. There's a big infield section coming up here from Eric Kulaga, a very important infield section, and a lot of lap traffic as well. I think Terrafino's come across quite a lot of it, and so he's losing a little bit of time. There shouldn't be any doubt now as to the fact he'll be race winner here. He's just got to drive it home and get through the traffic as best as possible. How's the traffic going to affect this battle? There's a good number of cars for Deloach and Kulaga here. It may well just help the Ferrari with that extra little bit of slipstream to get him across the line.
What he doesn't want, though, is to catch it through the Le Mans chicane, which looks like a possibility. The rate at which they're catching that traffic, I think they might get them down the back straight and into that tricky flip-flop chicane. Oh, well, mind you, they're crashing in front of them anyway. Thankfully, they go either side of the track, but no, Kulaga caught up in it. Damage to the Ford GT, and that was such a shame after a brilliant performance, and he'll now have to limp home if he can.
Oh, I don't know if he's even going to manage a top 5. That Ford looks very damaged on the suspension, and I'm afraid Kulaga is going to see that podium slip away. Michael Terrafino, though, is having a much simpler final lap here at Daytona. High and wide on the banking. He may have even got a slowdown on this very final lap. I'm not entirely sure, but it doesn't entirely matter. for the course of this race. It's going to be another race victory, his 4th of the season and his 3rd in a row. Another pole position to race victory for Michael Tarafino, who will continue to extend his championship lead in the GT3 Fixed Series. Colin McKenzie will take home 2nd, with Robert Deloach getting the final spot on the podium after a dramatic final lap and a big battle with Eric Kulaga, who's just going to get home 6th, is he? Dale Pedersen's going to chase him all the way. Pepiano didn't quite get there, sorry. Pedersen doesn't quite get there, I don't believe. We do have side-by-side towards the line. Mark Fowles just going to get Michael Kulaga, excuse me. Well, not entirely sure, and I'm not sure they are either, as they crash over the line. File did indeed get there ahead of Michael Kulaga. 21 thousandths of a second, the gap at the line. But drama on the final lap, and I'm afraid to say Eric Kulaga, not only did he lose his chance of a podium, he lost his top 5 as well. Bitterly disappointing.
Yeah, that is disappointing. Disappointing for everyone, really. I was looking forward to seeing how that battle would shake out on the run to the flag, but sadly, we were denied that opportunity just because of a really unfortunate incident in the traffic, and really not a lot more that Kulaga could have done to avoid that. But shout out to Robert Deloach, that first podium finish of the season. For Michael Tarafino, though, that was pretty much the perfect scenario. Looked as though it was going to be 2nd place. It all fell into his lap, though, as it seems to have a habit of doing, and he will extend his points lead.
Very impressive once again. Michael Tarafino victorious here at Daytona by 3.9 seconds ahead of Colin McKenzie. Robert Deloach on the podium as well. Angelo Veloz and then Michael Pepiano round out the top 5. Then comes in a damaged Eric Kulaga. Dale Pedersen, after that pit stop, finishes 7th. Sheldon Hamilton in 8th place ahead of Maurice Gummy-Leon and Jay Steffi rounding out the top 10 to get 2 fourths inside the top 10. And 5 different manufacturers as well. Mark Fowle just beat Michael Kulaga to the line for 11th, ahead of Nicholas Carangias in the 13th position. Drew DeWeese was in the 14th ahead of Ryan Luna. Then it was Stephen Martinez and Sonny Sand after that spin at turn 1 in the opening laps, can only recover to 17th. But Matt Dinsmore, Felix Feliz and Alex Wright round out the top 20. Jonathan Diggs just beat Jordan Walker to the line in the McLaren. Then it was Lucio Vargas jumping up from the very back of the field to 23rd. Glenn Vanko and Greg McKenemy were the final drivers on the lead lap. Waldo Walden and Frank Johnson just fell 1 lap down at the end. Michael Plourde, Aidan Irvin and Rodrigo Morales round out the top 30. Starting to get towards the drivers who now had issues, including Barry Cochrane in 31st, Federico Carli 32nd and Baron Glover, Greg Doucet we saw have a long pit stop along with Jason Lotteridge as well, who was minding his own business in the final few laps. Phil Amaro 36th ahead of Dino Vella, who had that crash at the bus stop chicane. Ryan Chandler 38th after soldiering on for much of the latter portion of that race. Brian Hoskins and Matt Sharef round out the top 40. Final few drivers, Judd Khalif and Regan Chandler did make it to the half distance. The others didn't, I'm afraid, including Jeff Fleischerman, Andrew Venaro, Chris Yatito, Rob Campbell and Ura Ureksoi. 3rd in the championship coming into today. He will likely fall down the standings, although 16 points will still be added to his score because of the drop week format. He will still get a little bit of a benefit from that. We will hopefully speak to Michael Tarafino at some point in tonight's broadcast after this race, but he's not waiting for us currently, so we'll have to wait for him over the next couple of hours. We will instead bring in, I guess, 2nd place man Colin McKenzie into the booth instead to have a little bit of a chat to see how his race went. Colin, welcome to the booth. Good to have you here. 2nd place in the Audi, just under 4 seconds away at the end with Tarafino. You couldn't quite keep up with him in that latter portion of the race after the pit stops as well. Just tell us a little bit about that race for you. Was keeping up with Tarafino just a step too far for you today, I guess?
I mean, I definitely knew that Tarafino was probably a hair bit quicker, but after the pit stop, I think my best bet was to just try to hang on to him as long as possible, especially with Dale. I was guessing he underfueled with how much he came out in front of me into the pit stop, but we ran into a little bit of lap traffic as I just messed up a little bit coming out of the bus stop, which just put me right out of draft range, and then it was game over. I couldn't get back to him. So Just trying to survive at that point, but make sure that P3 wasn't going to keep coming up on me.
You mentioned the pit stops there. Just how much of an effect do the pit stops have on these races? Do they really change the way you think about them and the way you race them?
Certain points, I would say, yeah, but for the most part, it's just, you know, run out your full entire tank and then come in. I don't see the undercut on a lot of these tracks really that powerful, so it doesn't affect too much. It's kind of just, you know, follow the leader of what happens.
Well, second place, Colin. Congratulations on that result here tonight at Daytona, and thanks very much for coming to have a chat with us.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks very much. Colin McKenzie, second place here today at Daytona, finishing just ahead of Robert DeLoach, who was in third. Robert, welcome to the move. Good to have you here as well. That final lap was dramatic with Eric Kulaga. You were able to get through the chaos in front of you. Kulaga wasn't. Just tell us what it was like from your perspective.
Yeah, it was pretty chaotic. I saw them sliding around, and I just took the chance to gamble. They were sliding up track. That's the way they're heading, so I dove to the inside. And fortunately missed him.
Yeah, you fortunately were on the right side of it. Good to see that. I mean, you did gain a lot out of the pit stop phase as well. Did you do anything particularly specific in that pit stop phase that helped you? Would you say, or did you just appear in the you know, podium places, suddenly battling over a podium?
No, not really. I just made sure I hit my marks and carried my speed. And I felt like I slowed down a little bit too much at the line, but just took enough fuel. And I don't know, that was just enough. I think me and Eric came out about the same as we went in, but we jumped Angelo somehow. So, yeah, just happened to work out. I don't think I did anything special. No tires, of course. I think that's what everybody did.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, top three, once again, third place for you tonight, Robert. Congratulations on that. Thanks very much for coming to have a chat with us. And once again, congratulations.
No problem. Thank you.
There we are, Robert DeLoach, third place here today. And just for some continuity, we'll interview the other driver in that little battle as well. Eric Kulaga was there, ended up sixth place. Eric, welcome to the booth. I guess you might be a little bit disappointed with the way that last lap panned out. Just tell us what it was like from your perspective.
Yeah, very frustrating, but it was a great run. Yeah, it was. I had fourth locked up. I had a shot for a podium. I was very excited. I mean, I was just drafting with Robert the whole time. I didn't have the pace. I was a sitting duck alone on the straightaways, so I just said, I'm going to stick behind this guy and ride it out. And it was working perfectly until that end. I don't know. I mean, he just came off the wall and never just came into traffic and wiped me out. But at least I recovered for sixth, so it's not. It's the most disappointing sixth place I've ever had.
Well, there are some positives to take from that, I suppose. What was the Ford like around here at Daytona? I say it every time I'm on this broadcast. I love the fact that you still use it and the fact that the Ford is still in circulation. What was it like around here?
It was fast on its own, but it did not draft well. The Ferraris especially could just blow by me. So yeah, I mean, the infield and the bus stop, I was able to keep up and gain some time. So it balanced out. It ran smooth. I had like I said, it was such a good run. It was probably the best race I've had in this car, and I love the car. I'm gonna miss it now that they finally BOP'd it so that it's competitive. I'm gonna miss it when it's gone, but I'm gonna drive it till it dies now.
Absolutely, and we love seeing you out there in it. Eric, congratulations on sixth place, even if you are a little bit disappointed.
A little disappointed.
With it. And,
a little disappointed.
Thanks very much for coming to have a chat with us.
Thank you, guys. Great broadcast. We love seeing you, watching it afterwards.
Thanks very much. Eric Kulaga, sixth place here today at Daytona. And we'll just have time as well for Michael Tarafino, who finished on the top spot, of course. Michael, welcome to the booth. 3.9 seconds, the margin at the end. I have to ask you, when Dale Pedersen came out a good 7 seconds in front of you, were you surprised? Did you realise that something might be wrong?
Yeah, I was very confused. I started double checking, did I overfill the car? Or because I was running out of gas coming into my pit box, and I slid through it, and it took a half second to start to back up. But I was like, there's no way I just lost 7 seconds because of that. So I was really confused, but unfortunately he underfilled it.
And that is a third win on the bounce for you now in the GT3 Fixed Series. Just how do you feel the rest of the 4 rounds are going to go? You've got obviously a bit of a championship lead that will be a little bit bigger after this round as well. Do you think you'll be able to take this championship all the way home?
Hopefully. We'll see what happens. Next week for Long Beach, I'm not looking forward to it because I'm going to have no practice. I'm going to Daytona for the real life race. So I'll have no practice by the time I get back, if I make it in time.
Well, hopefully we will see you on the grid next week, and enjoy your time at Daytona as well. Michael, congratulations on the win, and thanks very much for coming to have a chat with us.
Yep, thanks a lot.
Thanks so much. Michael Terrafino, first place here today at Daytona, and I'm now very jealous he's going to the 24 this weekend, but there we are. There we are, Long Beach Street Circuit. That's where we're heading in 1 week's time. Make sure you join us live on RaceSpotTV. We'll be live at 8:30 Eastern Time. As always, for the 2 GT3 races in the Precision Racing League. You did hear me right, by the way. 2 GT3 races. We've got the second of them coming up for you right now. It's the GT3 Sprint Series that have just begun or they'll just be beginning their qualifying pretty shortly. And we've got some things to rattle off before we get there. A 40-minute race coming up. Pro and Am as well, of course. So a couple of things to keep an eye on throughout the 40-minute race that is coming up very, very soon. Let's take a little bit of a look at the standings here, though. The pro standings, only 10 points separating Elliott White and Komarov at the moment, with Sean Dickinson in 3rd, Raymond Yip 4th, and Martin Crisp in 5th. All of them separated by 30 points, and they're spaced out fairly evenly as well, all the way down to Zach Kerr in 10th place for Delta Sport. Spaced out rather nicely. In the AM Championship right now, we've got Turner Scroll with a great performance at the last round at Manicourt, shooting up, I should say, let me get the senses right, shooting up right into the top spot. Blake Ziti in the 2nd place, Nathan Deering 3rd. Difficult to score points here, of course, because everybody scores points as an overall placing, which makes life difficult on the AM drivers. That's why their points totals are so low in comparison. And then we have the team standings, of course, with Delta Sport leading here by 46 points over both Precision Racing Esports and SimCity Racing as well. Delta Sport having Komarov and Zach Kerr both inside the top 10 in the team standings. That's helping them dramatically in terms of securing that top spot in the team's standings right now, with Conor Wagner just outside the top 10 as well in 13th place, helping them along as well. So there are your standings. We're currently in qualifying right now. These drivers, of course, what makes them different to what we've just seen? Well, these GT3s get the setups to be tweaked, as well as the Pro and Am format as well. On paper, the 2 races don't look that different at all, but when you start diving a little bit deeper, when you start to realise quite what an effect a good setup can have on a GT3 car, you start to realise that maybe this race is not quite so similar to the last one at all.
Yeah, absolutely. The getting the correct setup in these GT3 cars is absolutely immense. It really is the difference between running at the front and running a second or a second and a half off the pace, especially around here at Daytona, where there's a real balancing act to be had with aerodynamics, for example. You want to be really quick around the banking, but still have that drivability on the infield. It's always a little bit of a compromise around a track like this. And also, you would expect perhaps a little bit less in the way of those slightly clumsy incidents, particularly amongst the pro drivers in this open setup sprint series. So hopefully we'll see just more of the really close quarters slipstreaming action that we have come to expect from Daytona. Really interesting situation in the championship as well, Ewan, because we are heading into the second half of the season now, but really all of the championship front runners have kind of used their dropped score joker already. For example, Elliott White, championship leader, Sean Dickinson 3rd in the points. They both had a non-finish. Then Raymond Yip and Martin Crisp 4th and 5th in the points. They both had a non-score as well. Really the only one who hasn't fully had to fall back upon that drop score just yet is the man on your screen right now, because Karl Modov hasn't had a non-score yet this season. He did have, I think it was a 16th place finish at the 4th round of the championship at Silverstone, but for that he still scored 15 points, so that perhaps gives him a small advantage in the championship situation, even though he does trail Elliott White by 10 points arriving here at Daytona.
Yeah, just that little bit of a safety net to fall back on is, well, I always find very, very helpful in one of these championships, as we have here. Martin Crisp is up there as well, 5th place in the standings right now, getting going, I think, here for Sim City Racing. Don't think that's an actual time. Well, it is, but it's not representative. He'll be getting going over the next couple of moments. Now, you mentioned earlier on, Andy, about the, and I agreed with you, about the way that these races were likely to end, and they were going to be decided on the final lap, you know, with the slipstream towards the line. Having seen the last race, have you lost any confidence in that view just yet? Because, you know, it panned out very differently to what I was expecting as well, to be honest, the fixed rate.
Yes, in a shocking development, the predictions of the commentators turned out not to be true. Who saw that coming? I think we are likely to see a slightly closer race here. As I alluded to, I think we'll see slightly less in the way of incident, perhaps, from this grid of drivers, and I think perhaps the pace that might be a little bit tighter over a race distance too. So I'm hopeful that we get one of those proper slipstreaming battles. I thought we might get one at least for 3rd place in the previous lap before Eric Ulaga rather tripped over those back markers, but yeah, we'll wait and see. I'm hoping for a nice close finish in this one. We'll find out, of course. All depends on who can stay out of trouble, how the pit stop cycles go, but yeah, fingers crossed for one of those Daytona photo finishes.
Yeah, certainly does. Quickening in at the moment, you can see in the bottom right hand side of your screen with the VR on and a nice up-to-date wheel as well, by the looks of things. Not that I know, but certainly all figured out at the moment. I have to say, and we often speak about this in longer races, VR is not a thing I would want to drive for particularly long periods of time. Even a 40-minute race like this, I would not particularly want to be racing in VR, but Quickening clearly does, and he is pretty decent with it as well. He's been a regular of the PRL in the AM Championship, only scoring 8 points so far. It gives him the 12th place in the standings right now, and all of those 8 points came at the first round of the season as well. Has not scored points for a good few weeks now. Be hoping that today can be the change in his fortunes. Let's see if he can move up from 35th, where he currently stands with this lap time. It's a 7/10 improvement, and he's going to jump up to 25th with that lap time there. Good improvement from him in this 40-car grid that we have here today. So very similar size field to what we had in the previous race. Sean Dickinson only 1/10.5 off pole position right now, but he's down in 6th position. That's complete madness, really. He's going to be looking to improve that with this lap time right here, and he might well gain up a few rows of the grid with this lap time in a few moments' time. Let's see, flat to the floor and over the line. It doesn't look like it's going to be an improvement. Sean Dickinson, I'd imagine, with only one more chance to get up onto those first 2 rows, and he doesn't need a huge improvement to do it.
So Martin Crisp comes down through the Le Mans chicane, then Martin 5th in the points, arriving here at Daytona, 7th at the moment provisionally on the grid, and he is going to come through to complete another lap very shortly. We'll see what sort of lap time he can get out of it. Much as we saw in the previous qualifying session as well, 1 or 2 of the championship frontrunners not actually showing that much pace. Raymond Yip is the man a little bit on the outside looking in this session. 15th place at the moment for the man who sits 4th in the points, arriving at Daytona, whilst Martin Crisp just fractionally there by 1/10 of a second outside of his previous best lap. But he's got time for at least one more lap, and as long as he's got the rubber underneath that Lamborghini Huracan, he should be able to get another lap in. David Mendonca, by the way, 12th place. He is the highest placed of the AM drivers right now, and he was in the thick of the battles a week ago at Magny-Cours. Didn't all quite work out for him towards the end of the race, I seem to remember, but he's a country mile clear at the moment of the rest of the AMs.
Yeah, exactly. 13 places ahead of Turner Scroll, who's 2nd at the moment, and this is the pros and cons of the system we have this season, that everybody scores points from the overall system rather than individual class points as we used to have in the Precision Racing League. So, you know, Mendonca could well gain a lot of points today but then again could lose a load at the other as well. I mean, Turner Scroll scored 22 at the last round at Manicourt to really vault himself into the championship lead, although Mendonca scored 18 himself, so it was a top 15 result from him. So, you know, it's I personally like the new point system, the way it works. I know there aren't all fans of it, but even so, I'm a fan of it, I've got to say. And Nathan Bartley makes his way towards the line. It's not going to be an improvement for him in the Porsche. Going to stay outside of the top 10. And looking up and down here, really, to see whether anybody can improve. Daniel Krasovsky is currently top, and he does slightly improve. It's another 43.7, putting himself further away from Boris Angelovando in the number 2 BMW, just coming up towards the Le Mans chicane. He might well, I don't know if he's even going to have time to squeeze this one in, is Ovando. I think he's going to run out here. Elliott White and Martin Crisp are still out there. I'm not convinced they're improving. Elliott White was actually, and does improve to 4th place. He's on to the second row of the grid. Ovando is seeing the clock tick down. He's not quite going to get there. And Krasovsky is going to be pole for this race by the looks of it.
Absolutely, Daniel Krasowski then on the pole position by just over 1/10 of a second, but that was a significant improvement for Elliott White there to get onto the second row of the grid, and the points leader crucially jumping ahead of his nearest championship rival Karl Modov, but they both have some work to do, neither of them making it ultimately onto the front row of the grid.
Not quite, but making it onto the front row was Daniel Krasovsky and Boris Angelovando. They will be just in front of Conor Wagner and also Elliott White. Komodov and Ted Lowendick will share row 3 together. Then in the 7th place will be Sean Dickinson. He's ahead of Raymond Yip. Then it will be Martin Crisp lining up directly behind his teammate Dominic Olivier with a win, 1 win so far this season, but down in the championship he'll be rounding out the top 10 ahead of his teammate Nathan Bartley. Then it will be Ethan Osasowski, then Zach Kerr. The first of the AMs in David Mendonca will be 14th, ahead of Thomas Dunn. Then Joshua Spears. Jeremy Gonsalves will be 17th, ahead of Alex Caruso. Rounding up the top 20 will be Nicholas Larson and Matthew Thunhorst. Ryan Puchel will be in the 21st position, ahead of Turner Scroll. Then it will be Andres Espinosa and Miguel Angel Fonseca. Noah Anderson will be 25th, ahead of William Brennan. Quatnin will be 27th, ahead of Nathan Deering. Then Blake Ziti and Chase Brown, rounding out the top 30. Row 16 will be shared by Caleb Lehrman and Jeff Carollo. Sean Carmody, 33rd, and Greg Conaway. Nick McLaughlin way down in 35th. Expect to see him move through the order in the race. Gary Brown, 36th. Then it will be David Morse in 37th. John Barry, Romain Faux, and Matt Hilton, rounding out the 40-car grid here for this race. 75 degrees Fahrenheit once again down on the track. That's in the 20s somewhere for those of you that work in Celsius like me. I don't know. The conversion's difficult, but it's around there. It's getting towards the evening, just about 7:15 in the evening here at Daytona. The lights are on, the floodlights are on, the headlights are on, but the darkness is not going to be affecting these drivers as it would at some other circuits on this calendar. Another 40 minutes ahead of us, and I have a feeling that this race may well stay just that little bit closer than the one previous. Hopefully, we get a bit of a cleaner start as well. Not that lap 1 was bad in the last race. I do hope we get more cars through it this time around, though.
Yeah, absolutely. The first couple of corners were fine in the fixed race, but it all sort of went wrong when we get towards the second half of the infield. But let's wait and see. There might not be that mad rush to try and get the track position in this one. All of these drivers will know that patience is key here at Daytona. Again, staying in touch with the leaders, staying in that lead draft, saving a bit of fuel maybe to try and shorten that pit stop. That could ultimately be the thing that allows you to leapfrog into a lead in the second half of the race. So the first part of the race really all about putting yourself in the right position for challenging for the win at the end.
Audi, BMW, Porsche, the top 3 in qualifying. Great spread of manufacturers. As we go green flag racing once again, Daniel Krasowski getting us underway and taking the initiative in towards turn number 1 ahead of Boris Angelovando in the BMW on the inside line. is Conor Wagner. On the outside, it is Elliot White, and he can't quite do it. He'll slot into fourth, and he'll even go side by side with Cole Modoff there. Two Audis side by side for fourth place, braking late, trying to make it work. Oh, Delta Sport in the wall with one of the Porsches. It's Zach Kerr, who's found himself in the wall, as well as the 63 Audi at the moment, picking themselves out of the wall. That's Thomas Dunn, who's found himself at the International Horseshoe, where it's unravelled for a couple of these drivers. It's single file mostly at the front, but down in the mid-pack once again is where we see the incidents and more going on.
Yeah, that's Andres Espinosa with damage in his Ferrari as well. So much for this being a cleaner start to the race. They didn't even make it to the International Horseshoe before they were making contact, and I suspect that was just a bit of jockeying for position into the braking zone that went horribly, horribly wrong. But at the front of the field, they have kept it clean, and at the moment, no one really making much of a break. It is Daniel Krasowski who leads them towards the Le Mans chicane for the first time. Boris Angel Ovando in second, Conor Wagner in third, Elliot White in fourth. They flick to the left, to the right, to the right, to the left again, over the curbs, and get that power down, up onto the high banks to the end of what has been a very dramatic opening lap.
Certainly has, and we've got a lot of the leaders still in touch. There's the view from the bus stop chicane, and now out onto the banking. It's really one long line, the slipstream, stitching things back together quite well, really. Well, apart from there, they're all going side by side, and they're going side by side for third as well, with on the outside Elliot White trying to take it in the Audi, and on the inside Wagner in the Porsche, late on the brakes. Oh, they're very nearly too late, and very nearly got into the back of Ovando. It's pin perfectly judged from Wagner, and he will hold on to the position. The six of them, nose to tail, into the International Horseshoe, with Sean Dickerson just getting onto the back of them. These six really putting the pace on, and we'll see if they're getting away from the rest. Dominic Olivier looks like he's just losing a little bit, and if he's not careful, he'll lose the draft to the top six, and basically the race win will go away from him if he's not too careful.
Yeah, just needs to try and stay within that slipstreaming range, which he sort of is for the time being, but he'll only be getting a hint of the draft as opposed to the full effect of it that he would be if he was tucked right up behind that group of cars ahead. But really lively opening lap there, and it looks as though the group of cars towards the front, not for the time being at least, happy to sit in line and follow each other. So we should get some good exciting racing here in the early stages. You can see the Ted Lowendick Audi in 8th position. Nathan Bartley is the Porsche right behind him. Right on board, heading towards the chicane into the left-hander Ted Lowendick, 8th place at the moment, with an interesting background to keep us entertained from his onboard shots there.
He's got himself on the right and a commentary name mashup, Andy McHugh and O'Leary, which of course we are, I guess, on the left. I'm sure Joey Temin, RaceSpotTV commentator, of course, is in close contact with him. I'm sure he let him let Ted know about that. But there we are. Ted always entertaining us with the onboard cameras throughout the day. Down in towards turn number one, top six, all nose to tail, but no changes on this occasion. Krasowski will continue to lead. Ovando will continue and be quite happy with second place right now by the looks of it. But it does look like also that more groups are going to catch from behind. Olivier is towing about 4 other drivers into this one. We could have a leading group of 11 very, very soon. And at this stage of the race, I do feel as if the jockeying for position in terms of fuel saving does begin just a little bit as well. There's David Mendonca, really not in a nice place here. He's an AM driver trying to get on with his day in amongst a load of pro drivers who are trying to get through at him. And Turner Scroll, by the way, is homing in on Mendonca right now for the lead in AM.
Yeah, and Turner is the AM points leader by 14 over Blake Ziti and Nathan Deering in third position. Mendonca fourth, but only 19 back. And because every position on the track is worth points for them, regardless of whether they're racing other AMs or pro drivers, it means that Mendonca is at the moment set to take a few points out of him. I quite like this rule. I'm with you, I think, on this, Ewan. The whole point of being in the AM class is that you one day aspire to move into pro, where you'll end up fighting against the pro drivers anyway. So what better way to prove yourself than going wheel to wheel with them for championship points? And David Mendonca, I think, well and truly proving that he is on the verge of moving up into that pro class. He's just outside of the top dozen and could well make some more progress before the race is over.
Certainly We'll see how the AMP race develops throughout the day, as we will here with the leaders as well. Now, do we have a move? Ovando looks to the inside, but brakes so early that Conor Wagner thinks I'll have a go at that, and he'll look to the outside at turn 1, but doesn't go for it. It's very cagey in this front group early on. Very, very cagey. Ovando there with seemingly wanting to go down the inside, decided he didn't want to. Then Wagner maybe decided, I might have a go here, and then decided to pull out of the move. That nobody with really any sort of desire to move forward at this stage, which is sort of bizarre to watch. That turn 1 braking zone was certainly bizarre to watch.
Yeah, speaking of that turn 1 braking zone, we're going to see a little bit of a whoopsie here. BMW and an AMG getting together, and around they will go. I can't see the number on the Mercedes, unfortunately, but the BMW will also be involved and lose some time in all of that, but no major damage done. I think they've both been able to continue, and in fact that was, it was David Mendonca, wasn't it? Mendonca was the BMW, so the AM class leader, number 55, the one who's just been turned out of the lead, and you can see he was on the outside line there into turn 1. And who moves on who? He sort of gets a bit sideways himself, David, doesn't he? And kind of comes across into the AMG. Racing incident, ultimately, but a costly one for the AM leader.
Very hard to judge, and costly one indeed. Ovando, by the way, new leader in Pro, so 2 new lead changes in the last couple of moments, both for very differing reasons, of course. Ovando, after I was saying everyone didn't want to overtake anybody else, he went for it in the West Horseshoe instead, which is a bizarre decision in my opinion, but wherever works, and he's made it work down at the West Horseshoe. Krasowski clearly wants to just work together a little bit though, pump drafting the BMW in towards turn 1 and then getting on the brakes down through the left-hander, a little bit wide from Ovando, a tighter exit from the Audi, and maybe there'll be a challenge in towards the International Horseshoe. Not going to be able to go down the inside on this occasion, and everybody brakes very early. The Concertina effect is wild at the back of the group, and everybody goes down the inside. That looked like Ted Lowendick maybe who was going for it, along with Ethan Osowski as well, who was just in the background, and they've sorted themselves out now, but these guys are braking so early at the front, but that by the time you get to the back, you're almost slamming into the car in front.
Yeah, possibly a bit of lift and coasting going on as well to try and save some fuel, and that will only exaggerate that slightly lower entry speed into some of the corners. But yeah, that top 11 group of cars it is running absolutely nose to tail, I should say, and that is, I think, going to produce some action before the race is over. And thankfully, race's end is 37 minutes away. Plenty more time for us to enjoy racing here from Daytona. A bit of a battle here at the back of the top 10 involving some of the AM drivers. Koch-Need in 20th position ahead of Blake Ziti and Nathan Deering. Now, Ziti and Deering in particular, 2 of the front runners within the AM Championship. In fact, they're 2nd and 3rd, respectively, in the AM Championship behind Turner Schroll, who leads the class. So for Ziti and Deering in particular, they could do with gaining some ground here. They're on course to lose a chunk of points to the points leader.
Noah Anderson off the road for Upfront Motorsports. A long trip to get back onto the road here. He's back onto the apron. Let's see what happened. He's through the Le Mans chicane, grabs the grass, and then a long stint of lawn mowing coming up here, I'm afraid, for Anderson, who is now thankfully back on the track and running once more as the top 11 continue. They make their way through the S's and through the opening part of the lap, out the International Horseshoe, but no changes. There's the overall standings on the left-hand side of your screen, so you can see quite who's battling for points with who. None of the AMs involved, by the way, in this leading battle. It would be a big help to any of them if they were to be able to get themselves involved in this top fight. It would get you a lot of points, but none of them have quite managed it. They're further down, and in other groups, Turner Scroll not that far in front of the likes of Nin, Ziti and Deering, but does have a few cars between himself and the chasers. There is the AM leader, in amongst some other pros, and he'll be pretty pleased with how this race has gone so far. In the nicest possible way, he'll be quite pleased to see that Mendonca is no longer leading, because he was subject to quite a hefty points loss there with Scroll, but now obviously he's turned the tables and he is leading right now with still a long way to go.
Yeah, it certainly is. 3 pro drivers between himself and his nearest rival, and a couple of seconds in reality is the gap that he's got over them, so he's feeling pretty comfortable for the time being. This is the kind of track where those AM drivers can probably hang on to some of the pros a little bit more easily than usual, just because of this draft. You know, you can be a second and a half a lap slower, but still hang on at the front. Meanwhile, that is Avando in the BMW then, holding on to the lead. Krasowski second, the Porsche of Wagner in third position, so 3 different makes of car represented in the top 3. We've got Lamborghinis and Mercedes AMGs in this group as well, so the BOP working well within the GT3 ranks at the moment, and absolutely nothing to choose between them at this stage.
That was a huge dive from somebody side by side in towards the International Horseshoe. It was Osowski, I think. Yeah, it was, and Ted Lowendick very much in amongst it here. Still in front of the Lamborghini, but through goes Nathan Bartley on both of them, I believe, in the Porsche. There were certainly big dives going on, and towards the back of the group, that's where the real interest is, because towards the back you are getting the same amount of slipstream basically as the driver in front. When you're in an 11 driver train like this, you can't really save that much fuel from back here, or you're saving the same amount, but you're also giving away 3 or 4 seconds for free. So they do want to get a bit further up towards the front, and this is where the real jockeying for position really begins. And I wonder how extreme the jockeying for position is going to get towards the end of this race as well, because by the time we get to the end, everybody's pretty much going to want to be second at this chicane onto the final lap. So we'll see who manages to get there and see just how serious the battling gets. I'd imagine very serious in about 30 minutes' time.
I suspect so, and the good news is that we've got enough drivers in this group that even if we lose 1 or 2 of them along the way through the pit stops and whatnot, we should still have a group left to fight for the victory. No one yet escaping. That is very much below the yellow line that move is being made. That's Ethan Osowski, I think, isn't it, up the inside of Ted Lowendick, who moves aside to let him go. We won't get into the ins and outs of whether or not it's right to go below that yellow line here at Daytona. That's been spoken about enough, I think, in recent days, but either way, the Lamborghini goes through. It was ultimately a clean move, and he used every bit of real estate that he could there along the front stretch at Daytona to make the pass and make a step further forward in this group, because that really is the key here, and you don't want to be stuck at the back of this group if you can help it. The further towards the front you are, the more wiggle room you've got when you get to your pit stop. If you were to lose a second or so in the pits, making absolutely sure, for example, that you've got a full tank of fuel, well, that's not the end of the world if you're pitting from the front of the pack. If you're at the back of the group, though, a little bit easier to end up losing touch.
It certainly is, and they pretty much nearly did there. I think that's why Lowendick decided that it was maybe not a good idea to try and challenge any further after that, and now they might fall into line just for a few moments till they're absolutely sure that they're back in the group here, because it is starting to get a bit strung out at the back. It does suggest that Avando is putting on the pace at the front a little bit when it's getting quite like this at the very back of the field, but then again they have been battling, so hard to read too much into the pace at the front. Picking out Conor Wagner in this group right now. You see Elliott White just letting a few car lips open up in front of him. Murdoch going to have to push him back into line here, maybe, or at least pushing him a little bit closer to where he wants to be. The Audi once again of Krasowski with a big turn of speed, and so is Komodov there on the outside line. Both the Audis looking to the outside, but then they once again lift off, save fuel into turn number 1, and they're saving themselves for later on, it seems. The overtakes not being made with any sort of regularity at this stage in the race. Everybody saving, everybody holding something back, and you just wonder what this race is going to be like once the shackles are released, really, because at the moment it feels very, very restrained.
Yeah, it will be a race of 2 halves, this. You've got this first half where they are very much thinking about saving fuel and just making sure you're in the lead pack when you pit. The second half of the race, though, after the pit stops, well, that's where things will get a lot more interesting, because then there will be an incentive to get to the front. You might not want to lead on that final lap, but you want to give yourself a few dress rehearsals almost, don't you? Try and figure out where it is you need to be in that pack come the final mile or so of racing, and I'm sure that's where we will start to see them going side by side as they try and figure it all out over the closing laps. But right now, half an hour to go. It is all about fuel saving, lifting and coasting into all of the big braking zones, perhaps even running half throttle in the draft here as you run off the turn 2 of the NASCAR banking down the back straight into the Le Mans chicane. It's surprising how much fuel you can save from doing that, but that is going to be contact, and around goes the Porsche. There was no need to be going side by side like that at this stage of the race, and unfortunately that is Nathan Bartley who gets nerfed into a spin, and he finds himself in the barriers.
Well, absolutely no need to be going side by side at the Le Mans chicane at this stage, and I'm afraid there was only going to be one result of that. Ethan Osowski is okay in the end, but the three of them will have lost the group now, and they're forced to fight between themselves. That's Raymond Yip just in behind as well, by the way, in the other Audi, side by side towards turn number 1. Osowski going to continue to lead the group, but I can't imagine that Lower Decor Yip will be very pleased with that, and the front group is reduced to 7 as the back 4 are shot out the back, I'm afraid, as a result of that incident. Normally, when you go into the bus stop, somebody has to yield, but in the end, neither of them did, and contact was always inevitable. Nathan Bartley was the one who came off worse. As a result, he's back to pit lane right now, and he'll be getting repairs to that Porsche. A real shame, really, because anybody in that group could have had a really good result from the end of that one, but I'm afraid for those 4 now, it's not going to be the real top positions, especially not Nathan Bartley after this one. I would have to say that with the inside line, Bartley was maybe in the right there in terms of he shouldn't have been the one to back off, but then again, did he give enough room through the second part? Not sure. Is it possible to give room through the second part of that chicane? Don't know. It's a very contentious one, that, really.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to run side by side through that Le Mans chicane, really. It's all about give and take, especially early in the race, and there was a bit too much take and not a lot of give going on there, is my assessment of it. We're almost seeing the same thing here, and again, one Lamborghini shooting across the grass, and that might have been Coke-Nin. I think it was, wasn't it? He's going to lose a place to Nathan Deering. This is a fight for 3rd place within the AM class then, and we will see that change then. The 699 Lamborghini of Nathan Deering moving up into a podium place. Blake Ziti had already got himself ahead of Coke-Nin a couple of laps ago into 2nd within the class, and now Nathan Deering forces his way through as well, with Nin dropping off the podium with that grassy excursion at the Le Mans chicane. Still though, nearly a 3-second advantage for Turner Schroll over Blake Ziti, because Turner is in that group of cars at the back of shot, whilst Blake Ziti is a little bit separated for the time being.
Yeah, certainly. That was another very sketchy moment. Allowed Blake Ziti to get away just for now, as we go back and look at the battle between Raymond Yip and Ted Lowending. Interesting to see that Ethan Osowski has been able to get away from these two. Seemingly has the pace over the 2 Audis, and might even be able to get back to that front group. It would be very impressive if he did. 2 seconds is the gap between himself and Olivier, who's at the very back of the front group. And if he can manage to get there, be mightily impressive, but I'd be very surprised, because when you're on your own at Daytona, it's very, very hard to get near, really, a group like this. They've cooperated so well, these guys at the front. They're going so quickly. Surely any lone driver stands absolutely no chance of catching them.
Yeah, and you know, I know this is a race, and you might be thinking, well, why are we telling them not to fight each other? It's supposed to be a race. Well, there's a lot more to racing than just going side by side into every braking zone, and it's the tactics of racing here at Daytona that really fascinate me, and that will only continue to become more important as we move into the closing stages. We're almost halfway through, and are we about to see a side-by-side exchange for the lead? Because Krasowski was looking to the outside of Ovando there. I think he settled back in line, but this is side-by-side, and we're going to see a change for 5th position. That was Wagner and Dickinson almost changing places, but Dickinson just slots aggressively in behind the Porsche. They all, I think, were just struggling to find their gap in the line turning into turn 1, but they got it sorted out eventually.
They did. Kormodov was able to get up into 4th place. Wagner very nearly lost 2 positions at once. Dickinson wanted to follow through, really. I think when you're at the back of the group like this, you do want to at least get a little bit further forward. You don't necessarily want to lead, but Do want to get a little bit further forward just so you're not giving away free time. Dickinson and Olivier, for example, giving away nearly 2 seconds of free time to Ovando. So they want to try and get as close as possible, and that's where the real jockeying for position does begin. We're over 20 minutes into this one now, approaching the halfway mark, and we will be at the halfway mark at the end of the next lap, at the end of lap 13, predicting 26 laps in this race. And so we'll be at the halfway mark at the end of the next one, and we'll see where we are in terms of fuel at the end of the next one as well, because surely soon we will start to see some drivers put their way down pit lane, and hopefully we see nobody underfueling like we saw for a couple of the drivers in the fixed series race just a few moments ago. Top four alarmingly close together here, with Wagner really losing some time, and Elliott White goes to the outside line. Whether it's to overtake or avoid getting involved in any incident remains to be seen here. It looks like he was maybe doing both into turn 1. Ovando and Krasowski were getting very, very close to each other. Elliott White didn't want to push the pusher, which is probably a good idea really, because it never really ends well. And the 7 of them stay nose to tail for yet another lap.
Yeah, that's exactly what we saw there. I think Elliott White was right behind Krasowski, and then Krasowski made contact with the back of Ovando's BMW, giving him that push, but it was really more of a bump than a push, and it sort of slowed Krasowski down. That little bit of contact, he just lost some momentum, and Elliott wanted to make absolutely sure that he didn't run into the back of his teammate, and of course that's something else to consider perhaps when we get into the closing stages here, Ewan. We've got some teammates running together here in this lead pack, and that can be a huge advantage here at Daytona. If those two are sitting second and third on the final lap, then there's an argument to say that Ovando doesn't really stand a chance, because they can just gang up on him and push their way through. So that's another important thing to factor in here. It's important those two can keep themselves together, the Precision Racing Esports drivers, stay together during the pit cycle, make sure they're together on that final lap, because those two working together could be a formidable pairing.
Yeah, it's a good point, because you find it hard to argue that Elliott White is going to choose to push Ovando over Krasowski if they go to the line like this. But this is, once again, the point about jockeying for position. Are they going to be in that 1-2-3 setup going on to the final lap? Obviously, got pit stops to work out first, and then we'll start talking about that a little bit more. But Komodov is not going to let that happen. Neither is Conor Wagner, Sean Dixon, Dominic Olivier. None of them want that. So who knows? Elliott White is into pit lane though, and I think Olivier followed him as well, as his teammate is going to start causing trouble at the front here. So is White going to try and go through, get some clean air, jump them all as they start to fight? Even a bit of contact with the two Audis fighting over second place as well. Krasowski, I think, has been ordered by the team almost to cause trouble here. Not in a bad way, of course, but just in terms of fighting Ovando, while Elliott White goes into the pit lane, and he'll try to go quickly while he's not in this traffic.
I think you're spot on, actually. I was about to say it was odd that Krasowski didn't come down with his teammate, because logic said that the two teammates, if they want to stay together, should pit together, much as we saw from the Apex Racing team over the weekend in the Daytona 24 Hours. That's really what their strategy was for the entire race, so that there was no danger of the drivers getting separated during a pit cycle. But Krasowski can really help out here by going out on track and attacking Ovando on this lap. It will slow the race leader down, slow this whole pack down, in fact, on what could well be their in-lap to the pits, and that might just be what it takes for Elliott White to come out ahead of them all once the pit cycle is complete. Are we going to see another attack?
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Krasowski up the inside into the chicane, goes through, and that is another few tenths of a second lost.
Yeah, he's basically been ordered here just to cause as much trouble as possible without obviously crashing into everybody. I don't mean it in a bad way at all, but just trying to overtake Ovando and get in his way and just ruin his day as much as he can. Outside line now for the BMW. Are we going to see a pit here from the Audi or not? Are we going to see everybody in? Well, I think Ovando wants to go in as well. Krasowski didn't have much choice in the matter. All 5 of them are in. Let's hope they all slowed down in time and they all avoid each other on the pit lane as well, because it could get awkward there. All 5 of them in together. This is maybe why the other 2 came in a little bit earlier as well, in the form of White and Olivier, because you avoid this kind of thing happening. Sean Dickinson has to reverse into his box as well, as he missed it just about going in there. I'm afraid he might well lose the draft as a result of that. Let's see who's out first, though, on the exit of this all-important pit stop here in this race at Daytona. They're all going pretty much at the same time. Connor Wagner has done a great job there. Olivier and White, though, working together very, very well. Have they been able to get away from everybody here by making the early pit stop? Are they going to go 1 and 2? Is it going to be Connor Wagner? It's going to be very, very close. Here they go. Audi versus Porsche. Inside line for Elliott White. He's not going to get there. And I don't think anybody saw that coming. Connor Wagner is in the lead of this race after sitting very, very quietly in these opening moments.
Yeah, and the big loser there was Ovando. He's right at the back of this group. Remember, he was leading a lap ago at this stage, but he really was held up by all of that and the pit entry as well. I don't think he was particularly happy with Krasowski there. He almost gave him a shoulder barge on the way into the pit lane as he tried to get back down to the bottom of the racetrack, but that has really shaken the race up now because you've got these 3 teammates running absolutely nose to tail, not in the top 3 positions for the time being, but they're definitely poised to attack here. I think Connor Wagner is going to have to make that the widest Porsche 911 GT3R in the world in order to keep these 3 behind.
Yeah, certainly. And he's going to have his work cut out doing so as well. I do think that they're going to try and preserve Elliott White's second place here, as weird as it sounds, because if they just keep him in that place, they can either push him past Wagner to the line, or he might be able to do it on his own with the draft on the final lap. That is thinking quite far ahead, but let's wait and see. That they're helpfully in position here. The 3 of them being in position 1, 2 and 3 like this is very, very helpful. Come on, I've got to try and disrupt that as much as possible, and I think they're going to go for the lead now by the look of it. Well, it's becoming quite obvious. Elliott White goes to the front, outside line being pushed by Dominic Olivier. Here they go. Round the outside they go. Connor Wagner can't do anything side by side, and Krasowski gets down the inside as well as the Mercedes falls back. And Vando's not quite done here yet either. He's looking up the inside into the International Horseshoe, not going to be able to do it. Wagner gets dived massively by Krasowski. It's getting aggressive here as the pit stops have ended.
And again, Krasowski causing trouble, attacking Wagner, trying maybe to allow his teammate Elliott White to break away. The gap is 6/10. If he can double that, then he's almost at the point at which he's breaking the toe. So again, Krasowski able to help his teammate here by just being a bit of a pest, a bit of a menace to Connor Wagner in second position. He was certainly aggressive under braking there into the International Horseshoe. Back out onto the banking they head once again, and Elliott White out in front. Like I said though, a race of 2 halves. It was very much follow the leader until the pit stops. Now though, it's no holds barred, and I think lots of experimentation now, Ewan, to try and figure out where the drivers need to be on that final lap. I doubt very much these positions will stay the same from one lap to the next.
Well, this is exactly what we were waiting for in the first half of this race. Everybody sticking behind one another. Yeah, not too much happening. But now the gloves are off and the excitement has absolutely been turned up in this race. Connor Wagner just under half a second away from Elliott White, and I think Krasowski going to cause him a big problem. Oh, dear me. Krasowski got into the back of the Porsche there, and Wagner very nearly lost it entirely. Elliott White looks to try and grab a block from anybody he can at this stage. The front 3 very close to one another into turn 1. White's going to brake early to try and stop Wagner from braking too late and get Krasowski in the position, but that's not going to happen, and all 6 will stay in the same places. We're still just over a quarter of an hour to go. The excitement is behind once again into the International Horseshoe as Ovando is looking for more positions. Modov trying to get that place back as well. Side by side they go. The Audi's still on the inside into the kink here of the Porsche. The BMW I should say. And they'll stay single file. Ovando will stay inside the top 5. Wow. Aggression has been turned up to the absolute maximum. And this is purely entertaining now. And the battle continues for 4th place. Olivier just didn't get going off the West Horseshoe there, and now there's a bit of a gap.
Yeah, he just dipped the left-hand side wheels of the Mercedes AMG over the outside edge of the curb, 2 wheels in the grass, spun up the rear tyres, and that just lost him some traction and crucially some momentum on the run towards turn 6. But he should be able to get back there, especially if, and let's face it, when these three start to squabble for the race lead again. Conor Wagner actually handled that situation into turn 1 really well because he was bopped right in between the Precision Racing Esport Audis, and it would have been very easy to either run into the back of White or into the side of Krasowski. They all managed to avoid any major contact though, and the battle continues on as they make their way towards the end of another lap with 15 more minutes of this to go. Can they keep it up without it all going wrong? That is a big question here. They're certainly starting to go for it a lot more than they were in the first half.
And I certainly hope so. I certainly hope they can keep it up. This is brilliantly entertaining. Inside line for Krasowski. This time surely is the time for an Audi 1-2, and he will get the place. Now, will he just try and slow down the pack here to let Elliott White get away? This is dangerous for the rest of the group. Very dangerous as Precision Racing Esports have a real monopoly on the front of the field. Very nearly a dive from Olivier as well. Previous race winner in this season, of course. Conor Wagner has won PRL championships in the past as well. Let's not forget, knows how to win and get it done on a day like today. As we look at a replay of one of the Lamborghinis having a big smack on the wall further down the order. Not sure who that was, I'm afraid, having that incident. Could have been anybody. Let's face it, it was. Sorry, they were live pictures, and that was the battle for AM lead. So it was Nathan Deering who went in the wall. Sorry, I didn't realise they were live pictures. That was the battle for the lead in AM, which is very much on right now, but it doesn't involve Nathan Deering anymore because he's just smacked the wall in a big way.
Yeah, absolutely, and Turner Stroll has been caught by Koeknin. Here's the replay. Look, Deering was on the inside. He takes too much curb through the S's, just trying to leave space there for the Audi, and a lot of contact, heavy contact into the barriers. It was Chase Brown who was going to his right-hand side. He was trying to leave space for Chase, and ultimately just went over the curb a little bit too heavily. But yes, all Lamborghini show then at the front of the AM class. Turner Stroll ahead of Koeknin, and then Blake Ziti trying to close in the Ferrari as well. So two of the Lamborghinis, the Ferrari, they're separated slightly for the time being by Chase Brown's Audi. He is a pro driver, but this battle in the AM group certainly a lot tighter than it was before those pit stops. Not sure exactly where Turner Stroll lost the ground, but he's going to have a real fight on his hands now if he wants to claim another class win.
He certainly is. A little bit of contact down in towards turn 1 as far as the pro lead is concerned. And side by side for 5th place, Ovando on the inside into the International Horseshoe. Outside line for Cole Modoff and not able to get through. Modoff, of course, 2nd place in this championship right now. Wants to gain points on Elliott White, and at the moment, he's only going to finish under 2 seconds behind him, but he's still going to lose a heap of points if this continues the way it is. Be really disappointing for Modoff, and his gap to White would pretty much double if things stay as they are. But this is a high-risk group at the moment. I wouldn't want to be here if I was a championship contender. Obviously, you've got to be because you need the points. But it's a horrible place to be if you're thinking about your championship.
Well, and especially for those drivers who, as I mentioned at the top of the race, have already used their drop score. The slightest misstep here from any of these front runners could cause the sort of GT racing equivalent of the big one, couldn't it? And that could really derail your championship campaign if you've already had a non-finish, as is the case for Elliott White, as is the case for Sean Dickinson, both of whom have been a part of the lead battle throughout the race. So, although Dickinson actually dropping back a little bit over the last lap or so in 7th. So Elliott has to be careful. Right now, he'll be feeling all right. He's out in the lead. He's got a teammate in Krasowski behind him, and I'm pretty sure that Krasowski will not take any undue risks with his teammate. Indeed, pulls up to the rear bumper, gives him a nice little push through the trioval, doesn't even think about trying to pull out to overtake, and this is the perfect situation now for Elliott to have control of the race and try to limit the dangers that he might be in, limit the risks that he's having to take. But in 11 minutes time, it might well be a very different picture.
And I believe, yeah, live pictures again of the AM battle here between Ninsko and also ZT as well, with Chase Brown in the Ferrari involved. Outside line for Koeknin. It looks like he might take the lead, although it's a dive from Turner Stroll on the inside line. He'll continue in the lead of the AM category, but it's getting very, very close. the top three in the battle for the win. Very much on here. Outside line for Chase Brown as well. And it looks like we've got Karmadov off the road somewhere. He's dropped behind Sean Dickinson. And where has he got to? He's down in 10th all of a sudden. He was side by side with Avando. Oh dear, it's all gone wrong for second place man in the championship. Karmadov was the only one with a drop score to fall back on. And he might be falling back on it right now.
Yeah, the irony of that then, we said at the start of the race he maybe would feel a bit more comfortable than the others, but not anymore, because that will most likely be the end of his race. So then there were 5 in that leading group: White, Krasowski, Wagner, Olivier and Avando. They've got about 3.5 seconds over Dickinson then in 6th position, and this fight not going on that far behind them actually, because Turner Stroll is running reasonably well in the overall ranking. He's got though Nin challenging again towards the Le Mans chicane, and Nin will go through on the inside line. We chatted to him last night actually, racing in the PRL GR86 event. And here he is on course perhaps for a class win. It will be either he or Turner Stroll now, I think, because Blake Seaty somewhere has lost some ground.
Yeah, somewhere. Might have been... Yeah, I couldn't tell you where that's been actually, where he would have lost that amount of time. But he has done. He's fallen a little bit further back. There's an Audi coming up on the both of them now as well. In the AM lead. That is still Chase Brown on the outside line there, looking to get involved. Won't quite be able to get in front of Stroll as well. It looks like, well, ZT is not all out of it just yet. Maybe he could just grab a position. So, yeah, Nin will just defend a little bit and stay in the AM lead. So 3 out of the 5 leaders are Precision Racing Esports drivers right now. That's got to give them a huge advantage heading into the final moments of this race. Looking at 5 laps to go at the line here. And in my opinion, Conor Wagner can't win this race from 3rd place. He needs to somehow get into 2nd and preserve it till this point in the lap on the final lap. But with 3 Precision Racing Esports drivers around him, I just don't see how that's going to happen.
Yeah, if Precision Racing Esports don't get at least one of their drivers on the top step of the podium, they'll have some serious questions to ask themselves, because they have got this pretty much in the perfect situation. Wagner almost needs to try and work together with Avando if he could ever get to the BMW onto his rear bumper. That might be his only way to try and break the stranglehold, unless he feels that he can win from 3rd, perhaps with a really good exit from the Le Mans chicane, perhaps by taking the perfect line towards the tri-oval. He might be able to draft past 2 of the Precision Racing cars. What he doesn't want to do is allow a 3rd one through, and Olivier was looking to the outside of him there into turn number 1, just settled back in line in the AMG. But Wagner will have to get pretty inventive here, I think, if he wants to try and steal a victory tonight.
Certainly will. And not only is it about the initial overtake, but it's about staying there as well. Side by side for the lead in AM. Putting in, looking to hold on. Chase Brown, that is, in the Audi, getting involved as well. Side by side through the S's. Always a scary one. Up towards the International Horseshoe. Putting is going to stay in front, and he will continue in the lead of the AM category. Although it looks like Turner Stroll is going to get another good result under his belt, and another championship extending result today as well, as the championship lead extending result today as we get into the second half of the season. Certainly easier said than done right now for Conor Wagner. Mentioned the fact that he needs to be in 2nd place going on to the final lap, going into this point of the lap, but it's far easier said than done. He's still got 4 laps to work it out, but I don't think a good enough exit, I don't think, any kind of exit out of the Le Mans chicane there will get him 1st place, because Krasowski's going to help Elliott White always on the road towards the line. The best he can do is push Krasowski, really. It's difficult to see how he can do this.
Yeah, I agree. And in fact, he might be about to lose 3rd place. Look, Olivier pulling to the outside now, and it really is starting to unravel now slightly for the number 51 car. He'll be on the inside line at least into the 1st corner, but is he late enough on the brakes? And is that Krasowski challenging for the lead? It looked like it. He almost turns across the nose of the Porsche as they go through turn 2, and somehow Wagner, who looked as though he might be about to lose 3rd, almost steals 2nd going through the first 2 turns, and Avando now barreling his way through as well. The BMW muscles its way into 4th, and that is a bit bit of a game changer in a way, because it takes the third of those precision racing cars a little bit out of the equation. Could Avando and Wagner perhaps form a temporary truce here to try and gang up on the precision drivers, perhaps not on the last lap, but maybe coming to the start of the last lap? If those two could work together, break up the two Audis, then it's more of a fair fight going on to the final lap.
Is there going to be a temporary alliance here, maybe, between these two? Avando doesn't belong to a team, by the way, in this championship. And the fact that Conor Wagner does belong to Delta Sport doesn't really matter, because he's got no teammates around him right now. Zach Kerr went off on lap 1, if you remember, back all that time ago, and Komodov went off recently into the West Horseshoe, so he's all alone, and Olivier just starting to fall back dramatically. I hope he doesn't underfield in these last 3 laps. But are they going to form some sort of alliance here late on? Does the Porsche even have the straight line speed to manage this? Well, let's see. Elliott White still leads, as he has done for a good number of laps now, and the so far nearest challenge has come from his teammate Daniel Krasowski in that second position. It's once again going to be a push between the two Audis, and you can just see the other two nowhere near as organised. When Krasowski is pushing White, there's just no way that the other two can get anywhere near either of them. It's going to have to be late on the brakes from any of them to get down the inside of either Audi. And once again, it just doesn't happen into turn 1. Maybe they are going to have to get inventive and do it somewhere else. Maybe Krasowski wants this kind of thing to happen so that they can battle over it between them, as the battle for the AM lead starts to really hot up.
Oh, and if that had been the final lap, Turner Schroll would have won by about half a tenth, but by the time we get to turn 2, Koknim is back up the inside again, and he will hold on to the class lead. So the two Lamborghinis continuing to fight, and whether they like it or not, Chase Brown in the Audi is having a bearing on all of this, because whichever line he goes in, he's giving a draft to one of our front runners in the AM class. So that is going to be a battle that certainly will run right to the end of the race. One assumption that we're making here, Ewan, amongst these leaders, is that Krasowski is content to play rear gunner right to the flag. Now, Krasowski is not a million miles back in the points. He's 6th in the championship coming into this race. Still 5 races to go, including tonight. Might he get a little bit greedy on that final lap? Is he perhaps going to try and make a move on White? If he does, that rather changes everything.
Yeah, certainly does. But I still think Krasowski is going to have no particular problems preserving second place from the position that he's in. Just Conor Wagner just doesn't look like he's strong enough to really challenge, given that we're going on to the penultimate lap now and you need to set yourself up for the final one. He is kind of running out of time right now. Krasowski once again pushing Elliott White over the line. 2.5 minutes to go, 2 laps to go here at Daytona. Krasowski arguably in prime position. Or will he play second fiddle to Elliott White and stay behind right to the flag? Conor Wagner once again on the outside is the International Horseshoe, and now, down the inside for the BMW. Boris Angelovando aggressive on the inside line. He knows the importance of this, but I don't think he's going to manage it. Into the kink they go. Dominic Olivier's going to try and get through him as well. The BMW is going to be in danger of finding himself in the grass here. Inside line for the West Horseshoe. There's going to be no change of position, but the top 2 might well be away now, as the battle for the first place in AM has also come to blows, with Turner Schroll off the road at the same time.
Yeah, Turner Schroll got sideways into turn 1 and he headbutted the end of the pit wall. There will be damage to the front of that Lamborghini. He's fallen down to 4th in class, but the championship leader in AM in big trouble. And in fact, it looks as though he's been off again, so he must have had damage going into the International Horseshoe, and he has headed for the pit lane. So Turner Schroll in big trouble. This is what happens under braking. There was contact, I think, with Koknim. He was on the inside line and he headbutts the end of that pit wall. Damage done to the Lamborghini Huracan, and he is out of the race.
Well, he is out, but he will still be able to pick up some points from the race today. So far, we've only got about 29 cars still running. So I think the worst he's going to be is 28th or 29th. So it's still a few points to console himself with. Top 2 certainly away as we go on to the final lap. Dominic Olivier has been pushed to 3rd place, as Wagner and Avando probably are not the biggest fans of each other right now. There was a bit of contact between the two at the third turn, or fourth turn, at the last lap. Olivier on the defensive, Wagner as well, and there's more contact, and Avando is in the wall for good this time with no rear wing.
Oh dear, that will be a talking point after the race for sure. Conor Wagner just seemed to move left into the BMW. Whether he didn't know he was there or not, I'm not sure, but certainly avoidable contact, you'd have to say. Here's the replay. Avando commits to the outside. Wagner, I think, perhaps was late on the brakes and didn't want to run into the back of Olivier. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but either way, the end result is simple. He moves left into the BMW, off onto the grass goes Avando, and the man who led much of the early part of this race is not likely to be running at the flag.
No, there's going to be the shoulder barge from Wagner, although well, it's hard to call that, really. That's why I'm not a steward. Let someone else deal with that. Thank you very much. Because that is a complicated one to call. Well, this situation is slightly less complicated, really. It's a 1v1, and it's Precision Racing Esports. Internal battle at the moment. Krasowski didn't get a great run through the bus stop chicane at all there. I'm not sure if, even if he wanted to steal this one, he might be able to get there anyway. It looks like Elliott White is going to be able to get there and take the win. We'll hold off just for the moment because Krasowski is coming. Is he going to stay behind here, or is he going to take it all for himself? He might well do. He might steal it from his teammate here. Oh, he is. Daniel Krasowski over the line, and he will take the win. First win of the season for him. Elliott White will extend his championship lead. 0.08 of a second between the two at the end after pushing him all day long. Krasowski takes the win ahead of Elliott White. Dominic Olivier will round out the podium. It's a dream day for Precision Racing Esports as they take a 1-2-3 at Daytona. Quentin will also get the AM victory, by the way, and another position there on the line. 17 points gained on the day. Turner Stroll not getting many, so Nim will rise massively in the standings. Blake Ziti will get very close to the championship lead as well. It's all change, but I have to say, for the overall lead, that did surprise me.
I just had a feeling that Krasowski was going to go for it. He'd been so aggressive all race long when he was battling with the likes of Conor Wagner and Avando in the earlier stages as well. I just kind of had the feeling that he wasn't really the settle for second kind of driver, and he saw his chance. He was in the perfect position to do it as well without taking any big risks. He knew he had no pressure from behind. He knew that he could time that slipstream to perfection. He also knew that he had timed it to perfection because he was flashing the lights in celebration before they even got to the line. So Krasowski judged that absolutely perfectly. It was a well-deserved and well-executed win, and I did have a feeling he was going to give that a go.
Well, I didn't. To be honest, I was not expecting that, but maybe I should have been. Don't really know. Krasowski, no doubt he took the win, though. I'm not sure Andres Espinosa, by the way, hasn't run out of fuel here. Or I don't know what other reason he could be driving so slowly for, to be honest. He's going to use the banking now. He could be out of fuel. It doesn't really matter. He will still get the points for 25th position, as it will be at the end. Daniel Krasowski takes the win, though. 81 thousandths of a second, heading a Precision Racing Esports 1-2-3. Conor Wagner missing out on the podium at the end. Ted Lowendick was quiet after his incident, did manage to get a top 5 in the end of Raymond Yip. They both managed to overtake Sean Dickinson, who will be disappointed with his day. Ethan Osowski will be in the 8th place ahead of Joshua Spears, and Nicholas Larson rounding out the top 10. Matthew Thunhost will be in the 11th place ahead of Ryan Pachel and Miguelango Fonseca. Quoknin takes the AM victory ahead of Blake Ziti. Chase Brown was sandwiched in between them, with David Mendonca recovering to a 3rd in AM after his incident earlier on in the day. Martin Crisp, William Brennan and Nick McLaughlin round out the top 20, with Matt Hilton just missing out. Kolbodov 22nd by the end. Surprised he even managed that with the damage he had. Boris Angel Avando finished the race in the pit lane in 23rd. Caleb Lemon 24th ahead of David Morse and Andres Espinosa, last driver on the lead lap. Turner Stroll ended up 1 lap down, but still picks up 4 points from the day. Jeff Carollo, Gary Brown and Thomas Dunn all get the final points paying positions of the day. Nathan Deering just misses out. He'll be very disappointed with that. Alex Caruso 32nd, Sean Carmody, Greg Conaway, Noah Anderson, Nathan Bartley, Jeremy Gonsalves, John Barry and Zach Kerr rounding out your 39 driver grid. for today's race. Well, what a race it was, and what a finish we had indeed. Let's bring in the race winner after that one. Daniel Krasowski, welcome to the booth. Good to have you here. A win at the end, 81 thousandths of a second separating you and Elliott White at the end of that race. Was it always your plan to stay in second for, most of the second run there and then take it at the line? What was the interaction like between you and your teammates?
Yes, that was always the plan. I think if you're leading that out of the bus stop, unless you have at least over half a second, you're going to lose it to the finish line. So that was the strategy. Unfortunately, a little bit of miscommunication on track between me and Elliott. I did bump him a little bit in the back. I did see slight damage, so it might have decreased his aero. So hopefully that didn't cause him the loss, but it was a very good race.
It was a very close race, and I have to say the pass surprised me. So there we are. It doesn't take much. You're 33 points off the lead in the standings going into today. You'll be a little bit closer now, having just beaten Elliott White by one position. What do you think about your championship chances going into the last 4 rounds? Do you think you can still put up a fight?
I'm just going to fight for some wins. My championship run is over as I switched cars and took a 20-point hit. So I'm not really in the running, but I'm sure I can get a few more podiums, hopefully first places.
Yeah, let's hope so. We look forward to seeing you again, Daniel, over the next 4 weeks, of course, rounding out this season. But for now, congratulations on the race win, and thanks for coming to talk to us.
Yeah, thanks. Cheers.
Thanks so much. Daniel Krasowski rounding out the top step of the podium here today. We'll just go down to the man he just beat their second place in Pro before we get to the AM winners, of course. Elliott White, welcome to the booth. Good to have you here. I'll pose the same question to you. By the way, were you in a discussion during the race with Daniel as opposed to what you were going on? Were you in a voice chat at the time, or were you kind of reading through body language what was going on? Just how was the dynamic working?
Yeah, I mean, I was actually talking to Dominic. I wasn't talking to Dan, but I assumed it wasn't gonna be anything crazy between us during the race, and so it kind of just worked out well that we all ended up in the same position and were able to work it out together. But there was no communication during the race at all.
All of your championship rivals have lost pretty significant points on you today. Comboed off with that spin going towards the West Horseshoe, and Sean Dickinson falling out of the lead group, etc. How do you think your chances are of winning this championship now with the lead that you've got? Still 4 rounds to go, of course, but how are you feeling going into those?
I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, I don't remember what tracks are on the rest of the schedule. I think Interlagos might be one of them, but Long Beach I think is one. So it'll be interesting. A lot of work to be done, but I was definitely pretty fortunate that my championship contenders had issues. I heard what happened to Carl, and I kind of, at that point I was like, well, if I win, I win. If I don't, I don't. I kind of I had a 4x, or if I had one more 4x, I would have been having a penalty. So I was taking it really easy there as well.
Yeah, certainly. Difficult race for all, I'm sure. But second place, still a good result for you. Congratulations on that, Elliott, and we look forward to seeing you again over the next 4 weeks.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you very much. Second place, Elliott White here today. And just to round off the podium in the pro field, and just to round off the Precision Racing Esports dominance, Dominic Olivier joins us from third place. Dominic, it's the perfect race, really, for the team. You were able to bring home a third place. Just what does that mean as a team to be able to take all 3 spots on the podium?
Man, it means the world. I'm sure the boss, Jerome, is very happy with that one, too. We definitely tried our best to achieve this. It was a little bit more challenging on my end to do it, especially with a late switch to the Mercedes today. But yeah, just the race was super fun. Everybody was pretty respectable, and the racing was really good. Some of the best racing I've done are on Daytona. These guys are all class, and that was a lot of fun. Just happy to bring it home in P3.
And it was a lot of fun to watch as well. You mentioned the Mercedes there that you're using tonight. Not a car you're unfamiliar with. I've obviously seen you driving it a lot in the past here, both in the PRL and I'm sure elsewhere as well. But what is it like these days? In 2023 Season 1, when it first came out, the Mercedes was without doubt the best car by a country mile. But what is it like now?
Oh, 100%. The Mercedes has, it took me a while to warm up to it, and then I really fell in love with it. I'm running it in the IVRA series, and my teammates Elliot and Dan, who first and second, we ran the Audi for the 24, and I wanted to do something a little bit different. I do understand this car, but it's not bad. It's really not bad, to be honest, but I think the Audi and the BMW and the Porsche definitely still have an edge on it. But I like it. It's a fun car to drive, so I'm happy to represent well for Mercedes.
Interested to see how these things change over time, but there we are. Dominic, congratulations on another podium and a great day for the team, of course. And thanks very much for coming to have a chat with us.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks very much. Dominic Olivier, third place here today overall. We will go to the AM category now. Cocknin is waiting for us to have a chat. Cock, welcome to the booth. Good to have you here. AM victory here for you today. First of the AMs across the line. You did manage to grab an extra place and an extra point towards the line as well. You must be very pleased with your day at Daytona. Just what were the battles like in that AM field throughout the day?
It was actually pretty tough. Everyone put up a good battle. I thought about fuel saving, but if I fuel saved those guys so quick, and I was afraid I was gonna lose pace against those guys to battle. I mean, the day 24 hours really helped me know the track and around the track, and just putting so many laps in Daytona really helped me for this race.
I'm sure that won't be the case for next race, next week, Long Beach. No 24-hour race to prepare for that. I guess people are thankful for that as well, to be honest. How are you feeling about that circuit coming up next week?
Definitely it's going to be a hard track to pass. I do like the track, and I do have experience in it, but hopefully I can get some practice in and run some whole bunch of practice laps and get a good battle and fight for the championship again.
Let's hope so. This result, of course, will put you right back in the reckoning for it. Congratulations on the win, Quok, and thanks very much for coming to have a chat with us.
Thank you, sir. You guys have a good day.
Thanks so much. Quok in there, first place in the AM category today. Just quickly as well, second place in the AM category can join us as well, Blake ZT. Blake, welcome to the booth. Second place here today in the AM category. Couldn't quite get there and finished a few seconds off just at the end, but what was that battling like? It was a lot of fun to watch, I have to say. What was it like to be a part of?
It was a lot of fun, actually. I was a little worried about I ran out of gas last week, so I was trying to save a little bit during there, but these guys were racing me so clean, and it was a lot of fun to make the passes and then know that these guys weren't going to wreck me going into turn one. So it was a lot of respect out there, a lot of fun to do it. It was a good time.
Certainly was. And second place for you, a great result indeed. Blake, congratulations on that, and thanks for coming to have a chat with us.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Blake ZT, second place in the AM category. And we have one more as well. Traditional interview with Ted Lowendick, who joins us right now. Ted, welcome to the booth. Good to have you here. Top 5 for you here today, which is a good result, I would say, compared to where you were after 15 minutes or so. You found yourself out the back of the front group. That race had lots of thrills and spills within it, though. Just tell us a little bit what it was like from your perspective.
It was hectic. There's a lot of chaos. It was just fuel saving the first stint, because all week we were running out of fuel if you didn't save enough in the first stint. So I was just sitting there relaxing. That when they made whoever it was made the pass into the bus stop, it basically ruined our chances at staying with the top 5 or 6. But I mean, finishing 5th, I think that's the best finish I've had all season, so we'll take it. I know Sean ran out of fuel. Shout out to Raymond. He's an absolute legend for pushing me and getting us up to Sean to make that pass. So, it was a lot of fun, at least after the chaos died.
Certainly, a lot of fun to watch. And we have to thank you as well for your background, which provided us entertainment every week. Oh, there we are. There's a zoom in as well. So there we are. Thanks very much for that once again as well. But congratulations on a top 5 here this week, Ted. And we look forward to seeing you again next week.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks very much. Ted Lowernick, 5th place here today at Daytona, and always providing the entertainment for us. Well, that's just about going to do it for us here in the GT3 Fixed and Sprint Series tonight. We will stay in the USA, though, for next week. Long Beach will be the venue for us. 31st of January, that is next week, of course. 8:30 Eastern Time will be when we go live for the broadcast. 9:30 will be the time of the Sprint Series race. But for now, though, this has been the High Banks of Daytona. Once again, after an exciting 24 hours of Daytona at the weekend, it continued here on Tuesday night. Precision Racing League GT3 Racing always delivering here on a Tuesday, and once again it did tonight. Congratulations to all the race winners. Thanks very much for everybody tuning in. I've been Ewan O'Leary alongside Andy McEwen. Hugo Luis has been behind the cameras, and until we see you again next week, it's goodbye for now.